everybody. This is Marianne Moenraj.
And this is Ben Rosenbaum.
That's right.
And we are humans.
We are humans.
Two humans still doing a podcast. Marvel of Marvels.
I almost introduced it as our opinions are correct because I was just telling Ben that I was a guest on.
We're just gonna steal that's a follow-up to the time when we started the podcast by saying hi above the Coode Street Motel 6. So
that's right.
We're just gonna steal everybody else's intro. That'll be our thing.
That'll be good. So, but I was telling Ben I was just on a podcast about ChatGPT for Charlie Jane Anderson and Elaine Newitz talking on their podcast. Our Opinions Are Correct, which is a great podcast name. I still am.
It is, but I feel like it would be inaccurate for us.
Yeah, no, probably.
Our opinions, not striving for correctness.
Yeah, no, I think mine changed from day to day as well. So
I'd be so disappointed if all my opinions were correct. I'd be so. That's kind of a certain kind of hell in a way. Mm-hmm. Like if I was informed from now on, you know everything, all the things you know are all the things you currently believe are correct. You will never again be surprised to find out you're wrong about anything. That would be that's a terrible curse.
That would be bad. I was trying to explain this to my daughter the other day because we were watching Gilmore Girls and I asked her whether, she would take my advice about somebody she was dating. And she said probably. And then I asked her if I should take her advice about somebody I was dating. And she said, well, you're much older, I don't know that I have anything useful to say. And I'm like, you're going to be an adult very soon. She's 16.
Yeah.
And,
any moment,
and you are going to have thoughts and I'm going to be wrong about things. So you should tell me if you think we were specifically talking about we were watching an episode with Rory was cheating with a married guy and I was like, if you think I'm doing something morally wrong, I hope you tell me. So I may not agree with you,
sure, although also not your responsibility. I feel like in some ways, like even though now they're adults, there's a certain asymmetry. It's like, but yeah, sure, definitely input is welcome, but also don't feel like you have to.
Don't feel obligated. No, it wasn't really about
feel obligated.
It wasn't about the obligated. It was more just the kind of idea of like, I expect that I'm going to get things wrong. Right?
Yeah.
And I hope I'm going to get things wrong. I hope that society is going to evolve and things I take for granted now will be revealed to be terribly sexist, etc. views, and then
we had this on a recent episode where you were like, someday my kids will tell me that I'm being sexist, and I'm like, really? Because my kids were slamming me when they were 8. Like, my kids were like, oh my god.
And I still have these, like yesterday, like this is even with my husband, with Kevin, this meme came across my Facebook feed about housing and landlords and rentals, and it was essentially saying like, landlords are essentially all evil. And I kind of had a little bit of like, and many of my friends like this meme. And I was like, I'm not sure what my position is here. I mean,
it's weird.
Exploitative landlords are evil. And so, well, I'll tell you what Kevin said, and he's gonna like forgive me, Kevin, if I misrepresent you. But he said that one aspect of this is that what is the landlord? Not the maintenance person, not the person fixing things, but the landlord themselves, the owner of the building, right?
Yeah.
What are they bringing to the table other than capital, right? Like, that
is what they're bringing to the table,
right? And if they're profiting, right, then why is it not?
Yeah, but what's odd about that? But what's odd about that? But what's odd about that is that there's a certain level of like, I see these memes too, and it's like there's a certain animus for those landlords. They're like, and it feels very like 1930s to me. Like, so one of the things that happened in capitalism is that like one of the terrible ways in which the proletariat is exploited is by and the middle class is exploited. Everybody, there's like these super rich people, and then everyone else. One of the things that happened is that they were convinced they were all small business people. So there's all these like Uber drivers and whatever that are like, no, you're an independent, you're a man of means because you have your own business with your own car. You've invested the capital in the car, and that, you know what I mean? Like it's like the idea that like all the workers are like, salaried wage workers who are
Right.
unionized in a factory is like, really? Because I mean, there's a lot of people for whom, like, I'm not sure that people should own houses. I'm not sure houses should be a thing. I'm not sure real estate should be a thing that is owned. Maybe it should be all held in common. But that doesn't mean that the like individual who's like, I have
Right.
this small amount of cash. Also, all those people liking that meme, like what percentage of them have 401ks? It's a little like it's almost a little like if like being angry at hunters and then like
Hmm.
shopping for meat wrapped in plastic and styrofoam at the supermarket. It's like if you actually do the act of killing the animal, then you're like a monster. But if you like go and have people sanitarily kill the right? Like what do you where's your
Well, I
401k
agree. I agree
invested?
that that's a
You know
problem.
what I
I
mean?
think,
Like your
yeah,
401k, your pension, the
I think so. So
capitalism
I think
is
I think some of the
yeah,
people liking the meme probably do not have 401ks. Some of them
maybe not.
are living paycheck to paycheck and barely getting
Sure.
by, right? So, and I think there's, I've had terrible landlords, exploitive landlords. I've had decent landlords, and that mostly just didn't get in my way, but that they were they were charging me like a fair market rent as far as I could tell, and then I didn't really deal with them otherwise. And if something broke, they fixed it. Like
Well, I mean,
that was
I mean, there's that
so
sort of pragmatic level, which obviously anybody could be a monster or good in any job. You could pick the
right,
saintliest job. You could be like a cancer ward nurse and be terrible and inflicting great harm, right?
right.
Or right. So it's not really like obviously there's two criticisms here. Was one is bad landlord, but clearly they're not saying bad landlord. They're saying
They're saying all landlords. They
landlords
were
are bad.
landlords per se.
And
Yeah,
what I'm talking about is not so much the landlords are bad versus this landlord is bad. What I'm talking about is more the like there shouldn't be landlords versus landlords are bad, right? Like
right. And
I
and
actually
so
think there's a pretty good argument to be made, maybe that there shouldn't be landlords, and
well,
that's
I
a
think
bad thing to
I think
have.
that's what Kevin was saying.
But
Like,
that's not the same
why
argument.
no, but I think that is actually more what they're getting towards, and more what Kevin was saying was like, like something that is currently set up as a landlord tenant kind of mechanism, could have been set up as a co-op instead, right?
Sure,
And
right? Yes.
so
I guess what I'm saying
why
is,
yeah, why do we
I guess
like
what I'm saying is,
because
there's
I
a
mm,
yeah.
because
No, no,
just
go
because
ahead.
I kind of come into it kind of confused because I'm like, well, I want to have the option to rent, and I don't want to have to own property, right?
Yeah,
So how can the whole system be bad?
right.
And then he brought up this co-op thing, and I was like, okay, well,
Well,
maybe,
sure.
so
Well,
I feel like
everyone could just have the right to, everyone could just have
mhm,
the right to claim a certain amount of square meterage in the city. The city could be like, this is how much housing there is. This
yeah.
is the number of people. You get this much. And then everybody could just be like, and there could be a lottery. Like, there's a million ways you
Mm,
could organize things other than, like, indeed, like, like, that's how
right,
our college dorm. There was a lottery, right? It was like
right,
you picked it, you got a number, and they got to look at all the houses, and you pick the one you
right,
like.
right,
Sure, we could do that. You know what I mean? Like it's a million ways. There's of all the
right,
like humans have ended up in one little corner of all possibilities, right? Like
right.
so sure, like I if I were going to design society from scratch, I could probably think better relationships than landlord tenant relationships. What's odd is this particular animate because everybody is cut in this system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like and there's one thing to direct animus at like the captains of industry who own private islands and are launching themselves into space and like you know Robert Moses style, I don't know, destroying whole neighborhoods. Like that's right. Like that's obviously that. Not even
Sure.
on some level, I feel like one of the interesting things is that everybody's actions are constrained, right? To some extent, corporations are bigger than any of the people who own them, including a CEO who owns
But
50,
I,
51% of
but
stock.
I,
But what's funny to me is that it's not funny to me, though. I get why we have an animus toward why Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or something is a convenient like person to be. You have so much
mhm.
power and you're doing that much with it. Like I get that. What I find odd is that somebody who's like taken their retirement and invested it in a two-story lockup and like
Right.
that's their like instead of having like that whatever amount of money in like I don't know some
Mm-hmm.
like what their
Yeah.
broker told them to put it in. They just bought this walk up like that's the person. You know what I mean? That it's like that's it. It seems like an odd conflation of like it seems like assigning a kind of individual
But
agency. You know what I mean?
I think yes. Well, but I think they'd argue that you do have individual agency and that there is, like instead of necessarily like going from the top down, maybe you go from the bottom up. And, if we can get everybody to kind of reject this as a default. I mean, it's sort of like when you're having
Well, but
prison
what do you or reject
abolition,
what as a default? Like
like I mean, like maybe it should all be co-ops. Like maybe it's,
No, but
like
that's a different argument. Yes, as a voter in the city, I could be like, you know what? I want to
right.
tax everybody, especially the rich, build public housing, and distribute it by lottery. That's great. That's an action, collective action. What I'm saying is that the animus, the memes I've seen, the animus has been like, you made the choice to be a landlord. That seems weird. It seems like if we could just persuade everybody not to be a what does that mean? Does that mean persuade everybody who has more, who's not living paycheck
Well,
to
no,
paycheck,
I
to give
think
away
this
all
is
their money? Because that would be
no,
great. I'm
no.
all for that. But it's odd that buying Starbucks stock is not censored and buying a house and renting it to people is censored. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see memes about like those fuckers who own Starbucks stock. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. Why is that better?
Right,
Why
right.
is that
Because
better?
it's not okay.
Like, personally, you shouldn't have
Okay.
any excess money.
Do you want answers to these questions,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
do you
yeah.
just want to
Sure,
rant?
sure.
No,
No, I want answers. I
no,
want
right.
answers.
I mean, look, you have a relationship with your landlord. He's an individual person who you see, who has tremendous power over you and your
Right,
daily life, right? Like in a way
right.
that the guy with the Starbucks stock does not, right?
Yes,
And
that is
so,
what it is.
and so if you and especially if you have been screwed by landlords in the past, which many people have, right? It may be that most of their experiences with terrible landlords, if not all of it, right? And slumlord is not the same thing as landlord necessarily, but there are a lot of those, right? But just in general, even if everyone was a decent landlord, it's still in some sense maybe like too much power for an individual to have over, two families, three families, whatever, just because they have capital. I think that's sort of an interesting question. Like, if you think about like fundamental things, food, shelter, clothing, right? Like here are the things that we need to survive. If you have no food, but if you don't want to shop at this grocery store, you can go to a different grocery store unless you live in a food desert, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of food deserts,
There
but
are
yeah.
a lot of food deserts, but they're like it's clear that you don't have a lot of options. Most of us have options, right? So with landlords and tenants, I think the argument is that it's just much harder. It's much harder to shift from a bad situation, right? And
Sure.
you
Well,
may
that's
not
also true of
have many
jobs.
options, right?
That's also
Yeah,
true of
yeah,
jobs. That's
yeah,
also true of employers. I mean, look,
yeah,
I think,
yeah.
look, you've solved the problem. That is 100% the answer to my question. Why is there an
Okay.
animus against landlords? Because a landlord is an individual relationship. It's an individual
Yeah.
feudal relationship. So if you have a bad landlord who screwed you, you have this specific person to target your anger. So if you're a
Yeah.
person who lives paycheck to paycheck, works at Walmart, makes minimum wage in whatever state you're in,
Mm-hmm.
which means you also have to be on food stamps. So you're like on
Mm-hmm.
food stamps, food subsidizing, and you have a landlord who's like, is a crap landlord and never fixes your sinks. You can be really mad at the landlord because that's the person.
Yeah.
And and then there's some people on the bus with you or like who you're complaining to who own Walmart stock.
Right.
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 Now, logically speaking, they are also the powers that
Sure.
be that are screwing you. Right. But like, just, you know what I mean? Like maybe they have the same, let's just say that the amount that the landlord invests in the building is the same as the amount that
Mm-hmm.
the person has in Walmart stock. But you have this animus. And that's what I mean about it being like killing an animal, like hunters versus the supermarket butcher. It's like on
Yeah.
screen versus off screen. Right. So but it seems to me like it's right. But it seems like it doesn't actually change the system for somebody. If you're like landlord stuff, nobody should passively be making money off of that. If your counter proposal is that somebody who that's their pension, like if
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, just don't be a landlord, I don't think that does it. I think if they buy Walmart stock, that doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? Like what you're actually talking about, the power relationship, what's the leverage there? The leverage is like tenants, unions, laws, right? The leverage is like the
Mm-hmm.
laws, like there are like there's a lot of, like in Switzerland, there's a lot of protection for tenants. Like it would be very hard to kick us out of this apartment, right?
Sure.
And so that kind of thing, that is collective social action that changes the playing field.
But
The
you
idea
could
that the
but you could
individual thing is what's so funny to me.
I know, but you could also I mean I agree with all of that, except that I think you can also have a shift in cultural mores that might lead to more co-op buildings being
Oh, I
available, et
agree. But
cetera, so
where
on,
would
right?
that,
And so
right?
and
But
so but
where,
so part of that is like here I am, let's say I've got some money, right? I've
yeah.
saved up some funds, I have an inheritance, whatever it might be, and I now have the option of buying a two flat and renting out one floor and living in the other one, or making it a co-op building and, you know, sharing, right? I mean, I think part of the meme is kind of just aimed towards like, you have an option here. Do you want to be part of an exploitative system, or do you want to do what you can to not be part of? I mean, it's just like buying
I mean,
socially conscious stocks, or
it's kind of different
no.
than buying socially conscious stocks. I mean, I think it's a very interesting point, and I think that's a little bit of the way there, right? But the
Yeah.
fact is that if you have a bunch of 5 friends and one of them has an inheritance and they buy a big house and they're like, it's going to be a co-op, you guys just come live with me. They're still your landlord. Do you know what I mean? Like, until they sign a piece of paper that says I no longer own this house, right? Like, it is actually owned in common by all three of us, or it's owned by a nonprofit whose job is to, right? Like that
No,
would
no, no. I mean, I think no, no. It would have to be a legal co-op. Yeah, absolutely.
no, no.
Right. It would have
It
to,
can be it can be
like,
illegal, but
yeah.
I mean, it's more than one thing that means, though. You could have a thing that is run by consensus that nonetheless the property ownership does not change, right? Like,
Okay, I was thinking of something where the property ownership changed, where it's actually
yeah,
is jointly owned.
we're saying, and then
So
also
just like
situation,
businesses that are run that way rather than run by an owner and workers, right?
yeah,
So,
right. But what generally happens, I mean, there's plenty of businesses that are like employee owned, but what generally
mhm.
happens is that like there's some like you buy the owner out or there's some transfer. Like essentially the question is there's two things. One is the ask of like you have this much money that's supposed to get you through
Mhm.
to retirement. Like at some point you'll be
Mhm.
hooked up to a bunch of machines and they'll turn the machines off when the money's out. Like give that away. That's one thing. It's like
Mhm.
don't have that anymore. Give it to the other people, which is I mean I'm all for that. I'm all for everybody giving everything away, but it's an
Hmm.
interesting the animus to let you know what I mean. It's like the
Yeah,
standard
yeah,
is
no, no,
interesting.
I understand. Yeah,
It's like
yeah, yeah.
but there's an interesting question, which is why do you have more than you need? Why does anyone have more than they need? Give it all away. Give all of the money
Right.
away. But it's a weird standard to apply. So that's one thing. And I mean, I honestly think that would like I think that it's not that that's not part of it, but the other thing is so let's say that this person is like, you know what? I have this little nest egg, but I'm going to trust the future. I'm going to be open. I'm going to be a Franciscan monk about it. I'm going to give it away. Then they're going to invite these 5 people to live in their house. Who are those 5 people? Like we talk a lot about like, you should have anonymized submissions because, it shouldn't be just this cabal of friends
Mhm.
doing a bar anthology. So now we're saying you're going to have a co-op you're going to give away the nest egg to the randomly selected people who aren't even your friends or you don't, do you know what I mean? Like what's actually in practice going to happen is that now there's a group of friends who have the private. Now there may not be a landlord-tenant relationship, but it's still you haven't actually right. I mean, it
I
hasn't
mean,
actually
it's an interesting
democratized.
question. I don't know. Like, I I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a group of friends, right? I think it could be. I can imagine various community options for that. You know, so we're in a position right now where we have a big house, and we have a garage space. Okay, so large garage space. It's currently unheated, and it's mostly used for storage because we only have one car. It was built as a 3-car garage. Okay, this is
Yeah,
relevant. You're like, why is this relevant, Marianne? But it is, right? Because in theory, this is potential housing, right, for
right.
somebody,
It's totally relevant.
right?
Oh, I'm
So
not saying
so
why it's irrelevant. I'm not saying well. That's actually half the other half of the point is like,
right.
and so somebody who doesn't rent out their house and just leaves it
So
empty,
so
that's
so
more morally virtuous, right?
well, this is my question. Like, it's I've been, obviously our city has had a certain amount of homeless population, unhoused population, ongoing since we moved here. That has not been enough to, like, have me invite one of the unhoused people to live in my garage. Although I have actually thought about it in the winter because it's Chicago and it's cold, right? But it's mostly we have social services that are mostly covering the most urgent needs at the moment, except that because of Operation Lone Star, Texas has now shipped thousands of Venezuelan refugees to Chicago, right? So the last couple of months, we've been cooking lunch for the local, 30 to 50 people, who are living at the police station nearby. And they've been either inside or outside the police station on the
Mm.
concrete, babies and toddlers, and it's terrible, right? Terrible
Yeah.
situation. And they're trying to get them into shelters and then from shelters into housing as quickly as they can, but it is an ongoing crisis. And And now it's getting cold in Chicago. So I am now having this kind of moment of like, I have a garage that is empty, and I don't know these people. I drop off lunch for them once a week, and we wave, say hi. My Spanish is not great. We might exchange a few words, but I don't know them in any real sense, and yet it's feeling morally problematic that I'm letting them sit out there on the concrete as it gets colder and colder. And
Yeah.
it's not my responsibility per se, but if everyone felt that way, then I think that's kind of what the meme is kind of getting towards a little bit. Like if
Well,
everyone
but no,
felt
but
that way, like maybe it would prompt more change.
does it
No?
though? Well, here's the thing I'm saying is like, okay, so this is precisely what I'm saying. Okay, so
Okay.
I've been at your house. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big house. That's
Mm-hmm.
a heck of a big house in Oak Park. I
Mm-hmm.
live in a 3-story townhouse in Binningen, a suburb of Basel. I don't know what the relative price of this 3-story townhouse is to your house, but it's not an order of magnitude different. It's roughly the same, right? Probably it's roughly the same amount of value. Our landlord is a guy who lives with his wife in Geneva most of the year. They're like peace. They go around to war-torn zone. They're academics who go around to
Mm-hmm.
war-torn zones and I don't know, like negotiate peace deals or
Yeah, yeah.
something, or study things. Anyway, and he grew up in this townhouse, and they turned it into apartments. And he has a little uh basement, little tiny niche in the basement. There's like when outside of our laundry room, like sometimes I go to wash out the filter in his bathroom, which is also his kitchen. There's like a room that's like a bathroom with a shower in it, which also has the heaters for the apartment. Like the heater room for the apartment is with the shower and like a little kitchenette, and then there's another room where they sleep. It's like this little alcove that they've got because when they come to Basel for Fastnacht or the Basel Fair or whatever, it's like they can
Mm-hmm.
stay. It's like their own little, and then the other 3 stories are like rented out to tenants. Okay, so this is the same amount of like capital as your
Mm-hmm.
house,
Yeah.
and he uses that basement, and then he rented it. So therefore, there's these 3 apartments which we've had rent controlled for like 15 years. Rent hasn't gone up for
Right.
15 years. So that's like, well, you've got this lump of capital. Now you could say, well, he should give it away and not have it. Okay, that's one option. Another option is he could have a big house and just him live in it
Mm-hmm.
and not anybody else. Or he could build this. He could live in the basement and have these 3 stories that are affordable housing, basically. What's odd to me is not that people are like there shouldn't be private property. I'm like, that's cool. I also like a Le Guin world. Like, let's not have private
Mm-hmm.
property. It's also not odd for people to say this is too much of a power relationship. Let's regulate it highly. Let's give
Right.
tenants lots of rights. Let's really reduce the amount. We had a dispute with him at one point, and we looked into the
Mm-hmm.
renters thing, and like we could stay here for fucking years before he could get us out if we got into
Yeah,
a real fight
yeah.
with him. I love that. That's great. There should be like rights. But what's odd is to be like, well, no one is slamming anyone on Facebook for building a big house and living it alone. That seems fine. That's a fine use of capital. But
That's
if they actually
interesting.
are like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having a big house and then having a garage, and I've seen your garage, it would take some cleaning up for somebody to live there. Not really a space that people should live in. Having like a makeshift, like maybe I'll have people in my garage, not a super sustainable solution. You don't know them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would have a contract with them. Like that versus being like, I will use most of this space for apartments for other people to live in. I will try to
Yeah.
charge them a
Yeah.
reasonable way. Like I'll help them pay. They can help pay the mortgage on this place, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
live there and they'll have their own doors with their own locks that they can, like, that's arguably what my landlord has decided to do with this lump of capital is a much more sustainable solution that lets more people live in the city, right?
Yeah.
Versus like I have a big house and then maybe I'll let like someone will, I don't know, camp out. You know what I mean? Like what's odd is we have this animus for the landlord, which is fine if you're talking about like a vast like rental insurance company that owns millions of houses and is a predatory capitalist. They did some individual like I'm renting
Right.
out my basement. Like
No, no,
that's
I
the
agree.
heart of evil capitalism. Whereas all these people, half the people, some of them are living from paycheck to paycheck. Some of them are posting these Facebook meme. Some of your friends are liking the Facebook meme from big houses that other people could live in, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that's what I mean. It's like there, and I think the broader point is it's like being stuck in a system which is oppressive is the fate of all of us. And it's really important to notice that the system is oppressive and to think of like, what kind of collective transformation would move this system forward. But
Yeah.
it's also weird to have somebody who's, it seems like this almost superstitious thing where it's like the way that like, I don't know, in some cultures, like the people who handle tanning and leather hides are like a problem, like we don't like that kind of people because they have to deal with it.
Sure.
It's like, I don't know, like if you're going to have leather, like, you
Someone's
know what I
gonna
mean?
deal with
Like,
it.
it's
Well,
like,
yeah, yeah,
is
yeah. No,
that the person to blame? Like, I don't know.
okay, I agree. I agree. The meme paints with a very broad brush, and in some sense kind of directing the animus probably towards not the people who are most responsible for causing difficulty in this situation, right? So, I mean, I agree with all of that. I guess where I do see a utility is without that meme, I think I could, potentially go years, if not decades, never really questioning the landlord-tenant relationship and the concept, right? And so I think that's where it's useful, is it sparks this kind of conversation. It makes me think like, oh, those guys who are running for village council who are really going on and on about, the affordable housing numbers in Oak Park, like, they probably have something there, and I should like look into what they're saying a little bit more and, see if I want to vote for them, right? And yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
like
it also, I do know what you mean, but also I think,
yeah.
I do know what you mean, and I think there is something useful to the, I mean, I'm not saying never like slam some person who maybe doesn't deserve it as a convenient target to raise awareness about something. I don't know. Sometimes maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is what's particularly funny to me about this example is it's like a lot of times there's like you're talking about like, I don't know, shopping for cruelty-free socks or like buying,
Mm-hmm.
making sure the chocolate you buy is like certified not slavery. Like that, I do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something where, okay, this little incremental step maybe doesn't make that much of a difference, but it's on a road. There's like from like not using the product to like cracking down on the people who do the thing to like there's like a linear, you know what I mean? There's like the
Mm-hmm.
incremental step is a little bit in that direction. What's odd about it is that making it feel shameful for people to be landlords as opposed to putting that money somewhere else is not the way you get more affordable housing. That's like the
Mm-hmm.
opposite direction of how you get more affordable housing, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
making
yeah. No,
a
no, no. I see
making a
what you say. Yeah.
making a disproportionate stigma for that particular class of capital investment is definitely not how you get more affordable housing, right? Like that's what's odd about it. It's paradoxical that and I think partly it comes sometimes from a very considered like anarchist or communist position that's
Right.
like very
Yeah.
intellectually coherent, but there's a particular animus, and I think you're exactly right. It's because we see the landlord, so we
Mm-hmm.
can't be as mad about Bob Iger,
Yeah, yeah.
because we have moments like the writer's strike where we're like those fuckers running the studios. But most of the time we're like, I like WandaVision, right?
Yeah,
Whereas the
yeah.
landlord is somebody who largely your experience of them is not fixing your sink, right? But it's not, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like tangible in a way that, but it's just, you know what I mean? But I just sort of feel like there's this way in which uh it can be useful to have illustrative invisible cases. It's useful maybe to have, 9 to 5 is a classic, really important
Yeah,
movie. It's
yeah.
a movie about a bad boss. Not all bosses are bad, but also their being bosses is bad,
Right.
right? So on some level, so like that's,
So
that kind of works.
I think you've
But
convinced me that
anyway,
this is directing the animus in kind of a counterproductive direction. So I the only thing but the only thing that, because it's true, like, we recently had, a change in village code that allowed people to do granny flats, right? And, build
yeah.
under their garages and things like that, which in some sense is allowing them to be more people to become landlords,
Yes, those
right?
fuckers, those evil
And
landlords.
I mean, often
Right.
people are using it to house elderly relatives, but not necessarily. They may be renting it out, and it does create more affordable housing in our area. And so, so that's which is why we approved it, right? And it makes it more affordable for people to stay in their homes, when they might not be able to otherwise. But okay, I guess I still come back to the awareness piece, even if the meme is somewhat misdirected. I guess I'm thinking about a conversation I had with my students last week. And hey, I'm gonna wrap it around to science fiction. So we're just finishing up the intro to SF Lit class, and not finishing up. We're finishing up the segment on 70s feminist second wave science fiction, right? So we've been
Mhm.
reading Tiptree and Russ and Le Guin, and some very angry pieces. And as part of that conversation, we've been talking about things like my last class. I pulled out because I know I was talking to my dad about this last week when I was visiting Connecticut, and he did not know this, right? The stats about women are most likely to be killed by husbands, significant others, boyfriends. We are most at risk from our intimate relationships, right? And so we were talking about that in this context of things like Lisa Tuttle's short story Wives, for example. And and there's and like the stats that show that women who get married don't live as long as women who don't get married, but men who get married live longer than men who
Sure.
don't get married. And so there's the ways in which marriage and partnering with a man is in some sense a bad bet for women, right? And yet
Transfer of resources. It's a transfer of labor from women to men often.
Right. And I say this as someone who is partnered for, 30 some years now, and it's been a good deal for me in a lot of ways, but the and I went into it with eyes wide open to some extent. But I think at 20, I may not have understood quite the extent to which, I might be giving up job opportunities or whatever else, career stuff. And so having that conversation with the students at 20, I'm hoping lets them be engaged with the issue maybe decades earlier than I was, right? And so that's kind of where I feel like if this meme shows up in front of a 20-year-old, right, maybe they start wondering like, hey, does the system have to be this way, right? And this is, and this applies to like, there are things, I remember the first time prison abolition came across my radar, it just sounded bewildering to me. Like, how could we possibly get rid of prisons? What are they talking about? Right. And so, and like it sounds it sounds nonsensical if you have been completely inculcated into the system. And so that's like all I'm saying is that like, yes,
no, sure.
Perhaps some of the meme is just misdirected in some ways in practical terms. This is maybe not the best meme ever.
I'm all for the project of complicating that, and certainly that's something that like I don't know. I've like in both the guy who worked for money and also the unraveling, there's kind of an explicit analysis of like squat right and how they like there are no landlords in those worlds. Like I'm like this, there's lots of ways you can critique the system. I'm not saying I don't understand the vibe. Like I'm not saying I don't understand the anger, because the anger that people like the fundamental, like as you say, like it's so easy to get inured to the way things are and to just assume that things are inevitable, and it's terrific to awaken the anger at the idea that we even have to do anything just to be alive. Like, you know what I mean? Like the idea that we have to do anything, because I suppose you have to like swallow food to be alive. But you know what I mean? Like the idea that
you have to justify your
you have to justify, you have to serve, like power is disproportionately allocated, and if you have less of it, you have to justify your worth by being useful to those who have more of it, to like literally have things like food and a place to sleep, like that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that's So like the anger that there's such a and the world has gotten in my lifetime so much less. There's been such a hyper concentration of wealth in fewer hands. The idea that it was gonna, I used to be much more. I've gotten more radicalized because I used to be more sympathetic to the idea of like, well, maybe if we have this sort of, maybe the pro-business people are right because a rising tide will lift all boats and like everybody will be more prosperous. That seems like, I don't know, like bet's not in that direction so much. That felt like it was a lot more convincing argument in the 90s. But I guess the thing that I want to point at is always like, yes, being awake to the problem is really important. The next question is like, what would a systemic solution look like? And then like, are there individual actions that would point towards the systemic solution? Like, what actions do we encourage that would move towards the systemic solution? And I guess the thing I just found funny about that particular animus, and partly there's two things. One is it's the off-screen thing, and the thing about that too is it's like we, and I think particularly Americans, have a preference for it's like over the past decades we've been expressing this preference for less messy, intimate, more distant and commodified relationships, right? So like they literally just put in our, we didn't have a self-checkout in the supermarket until here in Switzerland until like about 6 months ago. And my initial and we just go through the thing and you say, and you kind of know the cashier and you say, hi, and they beep your thing and whatever, and they're very, and then they removed one of the cashier things and put in a line of like 3 self-checkout boxes, and I was immediately like, fuck that, I'm not going there. I'm sticking with the cashier. I don't want to go to the self-checkout.
Really?
6 months later, I always go to the
Always do the
self-checkout. 6 months later,
self-checkout.
I am always going to the self-checkout. I was like, because that first moment when I put it in, I was like, this is a really, you're going to replace, like, now there's going to be computers instead of, like, I'm just going to beep things to a computer instead of, like, having this human relationship. Yeah, turns out I'd rather beep things with a computer. I don't want the human relationship. But that's like full service gas stations. I don't know, like everything, like the idea, like not having, we will pay a lot to not have to talk to people always, right? And and I'm just suspicious of that trend. Like, and this, you end up with these like big houses full of one person with like Amazon delivering stuff by drone to their door, right?
Yeah.
And like that's like the end state. And part of the disproportionate animus to the landlord, not being angry at the fact that you have to have a landlord, which is justifiable anger, but the particular singling out of landlords as opposed to all the other kinds of capital investment, i.e., you're not giving up this money, but put it in stocks instead of renting a house to somebody. Like that particular disproportionate anger, I feel like that partakes of this kind of like, because the landlord is the person who has power over you, the landlord or the boss. So it's like a personal relationship. So if you're going to be oppressed by someone, you'd rather be oppressed by a faceless corporation of whom you have no resource than an actual person that you argue with. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of the same as me choosing the self-checkout. And I feel like, you know what I mean? I feel like there's something to be said for relationships that are, like, even like we should work toward having all of our relationships be both intimate and symmetrical in terms of power. But like, there's a way in which I'm suspicious of the comfort of moving off screen the power relationships that oppress us. You know what I mean? It's like, maybe do know your landlord and fight with them.
Yeah. I think,
I mean? Like,
let me ask you, so, this particular meme, I wish I had it in front of me. I tried to pull it up for Kevin yesterday and I couldn't find it, but so it was set up as 4 boxes, right? And there was a landlord who has 4 tenants, and tenant number 1, they said, like, tenant number 1 pays for your retirement. Tenant number 2 pays for your annual vacations in the Barbados. Tenant number 3 pays for.
Right.
And so part of the point of the meme, I think, was also about it's not just this guy saved up and this is like, instead of having money in 401k, he has it in, it was a meme about excess and greed, I think, is what they were aiming towards, right? As a kind of like, what level of exploitation of others are you comfortable with for your own pleasure, right? As
sure.
And so
yeah, but I mean, a guy who has 4 apartments is probably not the guy making a killing with vacations. Like, if that's what you have 4 apartments, I don't think you're having vacations.
You probably no.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that feels a little disproportionate. Like, you could easily be losing money on 4 apartments. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like maybe now maybe not in San Francisco, right? Now maybe there are different kinds of places and different kinds of things going on. So if you're talking about like the tech desert of San Francisco, where prices are so absurdly inflated that like it's a ghost town where everybody's either homeless and then there's empty apartments rented out to like, people flying in for a conference and they're empty the rest of the time. Like, that's an extreme situation. And then sure. But like really, somebody in Topeka has 4 apartments and they're going to a vacation to the Barbados. I don't know. I think the guy who owns a 4 apartment flat in Topeka may also be mired in the climate apocalypse, the coming climate apocalypse, and has no future. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to an asteroid.
No, I agree. I think I guess I was just trying to get to, I think I just wanted to, I guess, highlight that angle of the meme and the anger, because it's not so much about the power they have over you. Like, that may be what it should be about, but it is about this perception of some people. I don't think it's accurate. I mean, I think, and if
it is accurate in a sense. It is accurate in a sense. The thing that's accurate is that there is something here about extraction, right? It's like, I just own stuff and then I get money from that. This person who owns nothing or is in debt, as many people are, is like working to try to get out of debt, and they're paying some of that money to somebody who literally all they does is own a thing. That's weird. And we naturalize this relationship. So what's particularly odd is if you talk, like libertarians who are like, property is a natural human right, which is like, really? Like, I'm here and I own a thing that's over there. I can't see it. I can't touch it. In fact, the only reason I own it own it is that like agents of the state will come and enforce my will over it. Like that's what my owning it means. Like if I'm not around to touch it, somebody could easily just go use it.
So
They could go pick my apples. If
can
I
I
have an
pause?
apple field,
Can I pause you for a second?
yeah,
So I have not studied libertarianism much at all, so I don't know that I know a lot about their arguments. If I think about like, what do I own that I feel the right to, right? Is I think about like, well, yesterday I spent an hour knitting and I have this piece of knit fabric that I've put labor into, right?
sure.
And, you know, and I paid for the yarn, but it's more that I put, like, I made a thing, right? So I do kind of feel like I have some
the yarn is capital. The sweater
property,
is the excess value.
So I have like property ownership right over this thing that I made. And my understanding of some of the libertarian arguments is that they'd say, well, if you own a gear factory, like my my grandfather-in-law did, right? The assumption is he put a lot of work, he put a lot of labor into everything that led to him being able to eventually have this big gear factory that he was running, right?
I don't think that's necessarily the argument, because I think there's a lot of like, and if you inherit the gear factory, you didn't put any labor into it. I mean,
right. So inheritance complicates it, right? But I
I don't know.
I guess I'm asking if that is that. Do you think that's kind of the
I don't think we
argument?
should speculate.
Okay,
I shouldn't have brought up a political philosophy that we don't have somebody here to defend, because we should have a libertarian on. But what I guess I'm saying is, I think many people have, and I grew up with, let's put it that way, the sense that property was like real in some sense, like the way nations are real, like that, that like, right? It's the same thing. Like, but more so, like it was really mine. Like a thing was mine, and even if I wasn't in the room with it, it was somewhere else, it was mine. And I think the important thing to note is that I think everyone, like libertarians would acknowledge, maybe, I don't know, we don't have one on. That's a social agreement. We have decided that you can have an apple orchard, even though if you're not at the apple orchard, you're in another town, but that apple orchard is yours. Someone picks an apple, a guard that you hired, or maybe the police will come and be like, you can't pick that apple, right? Like that's your apple.
Right.
Like an invisible line extends from your brain through across the fields and dales, over the roads, past the telephone lines, to the apple. And those are it's a mine, that apple. Like,
so can I give you a funny example of this? So we have I saw this on the garden post yesterday, actually, in my local garden blog Facebook group. Someone had said that they had planted, a bunch of fruit and vegetable stuff in their easement, and someone had come and stolen it all, right? And was this typical, and so on. And a bunch of people kind of came back in and said, okay, well, do you mean an easement between two buildings? Because that is not very typical. But are you talking about the parkway strip between the sidewalk and the road? Because technically you don't even own that.
That's public land.
That's public land.
You grew some things for the people. That's the commons.
And and I didn't weigh in, but I assume anything I plant in the parkway, that there's a good chance someone will take it, and I'm not going to be mad about it. Right. I'm like, this is
the commons.
It's the commons, right? And so, but lots of people do not have this attitude because it's right in front of their house,
right? The thing is that we've destroyed the commons, right? Like originally there was a large commons, and there were commoners, and commoners were the people who lived from the commons. They'd go shoot ducks in the march and collect, and that's like the original. Like if you go back to like the Bible, the original ideas, and it's interesting how you see this in a lot of cultures get replicated. There's some code of laws from, I want to say maybe Mali, like an African civilization in the medieval or early Renaissance era, that they have, like it was sort of recorded by griots, and they've like a recent project sort of like assembled all the different versions and compared them, trying to figure out which earlier, so they could reconstruct the original like oral document. But it was a widely promulgated like official code of laws. And one of the things I remember was that the definition of theft, which is that if somebody comes to your field and eats stuff, that's not theft because they're eating it. If they bring a sack and fill the sack, that's theft. Like that's the that's the line. The line is if it's enough to fill your belly, that's not theft, that you're just eating stuff. But if you like remove it as stored surplus somewhere else, that's theft.
And it's true. If someone came and dug up my plants in the commons and took them home and planted it, no, people do. People like it hasn't happened to me, but people will. But
note that wasn't even talking about the commons. That was talking about your land, like the definition of your land. Similarly, in the Bible, you can't harvest your whole field. Like you can't, if you have a field, you don't harvest the edges. That's actually why Orthodox Jews have the
Yeah.
side curls and don't shave their beards, is because it's like a play on words, which the rabbis love, like a reading of the same text. Like harvest the edge, don't cut the edges of the field, and it's
Aw.
kind of like the edges of your face. It's like
All
the
right,
field,
Ben.
but it's actually
I love that. I love that so much. I had no
yeah.
idea.
But
Oh my
that's
God.
originally about
Okay.
economic justice. When you
I
see those ear
now
curls,
I now feel much more warmly towards the
when
ear
you see
curls than
those
I
ear
ever
curls,
did.
that is a reminder of economic justice. That is, you do not harvest the edges of the field, because the edges of the field, it's like you're
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
go in and do kind of a shitty job. You're supposed to come
Right.
in and like take the good stuff, that's all yours. But all the stuff that's like hard to get to or whatever, don't be an asshole and take
Right,
that.
right.
That's for the
Yeah.
widows and the orphans and people who don't have anything. They're the stranger. They're going to come take that stuff, which is hard to get at. And you know
Right.
what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
it's your
yeah.
field and you could take the good stuff, but don't be an asshole and take everything. And we've gotten so far away from that set of values that
You're
people
right.
are freaked out by the idea of the
Well,
commons. Their
that's
idea freaked out
that's
by the
kind
idea
of
to be
what,
something in
yeah.
front of their house that they didn't own. You know what I
That's
mean?
kind of what
Like,
I mean. That's kind of what I meant by the meme, right? Like, is that the meme was, I think, trying to point at greed as being like the most problematic aspect of it. Like, not, like it was sort of saying, like, if you have one tenant, okay, but two, three, four, like there comes a point, whatever the point is, where,
yeah,
so,
yeah. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, greed. The formulation about greed, like it just seems like a fragile formulation. I mean, in some ways,
mm,
this feels very it it the notion greed. So the thing
mm-hmm,
about greed is um this is going to maybe sound weird, and but you know what I mean by the term Christian. It's not like believing in
mm-hmm,
Christ and going to church. It's a cultural thing, but it's a
right.
very Christian framing, right?
Okay.
It's a very, because it's kind of like charity. Like charity, the word charity, like caritas, is like a form of love. It's like a feeling that you
Mm-hmm,
have.
mm-hmm,
When you give charity, you are expressing a feeling of love for your fellow man. Like that's the
mm-hmm.
Christian conception of why you give money to the poor.
Yeah.
There's no such word in Judaism. You give tzedakah, which is just justice.
Right.
Give a shit how you feel about it. You could be
Yeah.
fucking annoyed and hate it.
Right,
If
right.
you give $10 and are like, these fucking poor assholes, and you give them $10, that's better than if you're like, out of the love of my heart, I will give you these $5. Like, I'm not saying if you
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
act
yeah,
angry
yeah.
towards them. Obviously, a
Yeah,
human
yeah,
interaction
yeah,
is
yeah,
another
yeah,
thing, and
yeah.
there's all these rules about treating the poor with dignity and whatever. But like, like
So
the idea is, it isn't emotional. Like, it's
I
not
think
it's about what's just.
I think I get
You
what
know
you're
what I
saying.
mean?
No,
What's a
I
just
understand. I
arrangement?
understand that, but I don't know. I
So,
mean,
I mean,
when you
what I
were
think about the
when you were
excess, yeah,
describing the field issue, right? And like, don't be an
yeah, yeah, yeah.
asshole and take everything.
Right. Don't be an asshole and take everything. But not because you love the poor, just because that's a dick move. Like, that's not what you
Right, but
do. That's not
why?
a way
But
to
why? But
behave.
it's a dick move because it's greedy. It's extracting more from the thing than you need. Other people need it
It's
more.
not a dick move because it's greedy. It's a dick move because those people go hungry. It's the impact that it doesn't matter if you could be really, we don't care what you have in your heart. Like, you
Right.
could be greedy or not greedy,
Okay.
but
So maybe.
like, you
Okay.
can feel greed. You can be like, ha ha, these are my vegetables. But as long as you leave the ones that people can eat, they
Yeah.
can eat. Like,
Okay.
it doesn't
Okay.
matter.
I sort of
So in a
see what you're
way,
saying. Yeah.
and in a way, it's like, because, and I don't know, it's a subtlety, but it sort of feels like it misdirects action if we're like, don't be
Mm,
greedy, because then you're monitoring, like, well, am I being greedy? And then what you get is a lot of people who, like, it just feels like there's a lot of then people sort of attention on justifying, like, one impediment to progress is progressives being ego attached to being good people. Do you know
mm-hmm.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
When you're in a
sure.
conversation
Yeah.
about racism or sexism, work through, it's like related to like white fragility, right? Where it's like related
Mm-hmm.
to like, well, first we have to get you past all the feelings about you not being a good having done a bad thing, then we can actually fix the fucking thing, right?
Right,
And
right.
it's like I don't I don't it's sort of like, if you say, well, what's important is that you shouldn't be greedy, that's too much, that's sinful, that's your character is lacking. Then it's like, well, okay, now how do I figure out? Like every human is, I mean, like a natural human tendency, not every human, but a human in our society has been warped in a certain way, is going to be like their brain is going to be
Okay,
figuring out how
okay.
to
So
thread the needle
I
of
agree
showing
with
that they're a good person while also getting as much stuff as possible, right?
I
Like,
agree with you, but I do think that like don't be an asshole as you framed it. Like
yeah,
I read that as like
okay,
personal
I
judgment
agree.
in a
It's
similar
a
way,
subtlety.
right?
It's a
Yeah.
subtlety, right? I grant you, I grant you. But I'm not saying
Yeah,
don't judge
so
anybody, and I'm not saying
yeah,
don't
yeah.
call anybody on things. I think it's fine to be like that's a dick move. But I guess what I'm saying, I guess greed. The word greed just sounds to me like it's a mortal sin,
Yeah,
a flaw
yeah,
of
yeah,
character.
yeah.
Where it's like whether you're being a dick is about the impact of your actions. Like it's not about a. I don't care if you're a dick the rest of the time. That was a dick move. You know what I mean? It's a dick move to take the whole field. It's not
That's
that
fine. That's fine. It's I mean, you
you
phrased
can
it
be
as
nice to your
yeah, yeah.
kids and
Yeah, it's
so
okay. It's okay.
so
I can say it's a jerk move. I'm fine
I
with
yeah,
that.
I should
Right.
say
So
don't be being an asshole, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
Like
yeah, 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 yeah,
it's so I guess what I'm saying is that again, like what should be the norm, what should be
yeah,
structural
yeah,
actions, what individual actions take their way to that. And I care a lot less about whether people are, because the thing about it's very confusing if you're like win at capitalism but don't be greedy, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
everybody is forced to play this game.
Hmm.
Well, you could be if you're running any kind of enterprise, if you have any kind of enterprise that you're running, you're supposed to be like, well, how can I not lose money on this? So I should like saving on costs and investing in
Yeah,
things and
yeah,
whatever. Like you're playing this resource min-maxing game, and then if you're good at, you know what I mean? Like, and so that's I think a lot of this sort of um resentment, like right-wing resentment about like you're punishing them for being good at it, which is like,
yeah,
yeah, but the good at what? Like that it's
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
interesting. It's not that like optimize for the thing you want to optimize for. Like if you're playing the game of how badass can you be at providing affordable housing, that's like, you know what I mean? You could still
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah,
optimizing
yeah.
resources and winning at the game.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so yeah, I'm all for people like questioning why they need to take vacations in Barbados. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah,
all for
yeah.
a big thing in Europe right now is like Flugscham, like flight
Mm.
shame. Like
Mm.
like there's a lot of shaming for taking a plane. And I
Right,
think it's
right.
very healthy. I think
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
era we're in, you should be like, do I need to take this plane? You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
yeah.
it's because it's one of these reflexive, compulsive activities we
Right,
don't
right.
think about, which, you know, I don't know. And so it's like I'm all for people being like, how much money do I actually need? I'm all for people also like rather than be feeling like you have to be a saint and give it away. Another way to look at it is just like maybe work less. Maybe just like
Hmm.
be like, I don't need this much and I don't need to be doing this much economic activity. Like what or another way of putting it, what do I need to optimize for? The default is making money. But like what should I be optimizing for? Because the person who founds a co-op, I do not want to go live in a co-op with a person who founded that co-op and took their grandfather's inheritance and plowed it into this house that they're now giving away because they didn't want to be greedy. That feels fucking brittle and unstable to me. That person is
Hmm.
eventually going to be yelling over the dinner table. What I want to go live in a co-op is a person who is like, you know what I really want to do is I want to live in like an egalitarian space with like a lot of friends where we're all like have these symmetric relationships and we really are building something new and exciting together. And they're like, oh shit, my grandfather left me a lot of money. I could actually do this. That would be
Hmm.
great. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah, yeah.
a different vibe to be like, what do I actually want? What would actually be nourishing and go, and what do I
Okay.
think should happen? Not even I want, because I want is also a little bit of a trap. What do I think should be the case?
Right.
I've rented this body for 70 years, right?
Yeah.
I've got like this body I could drive around and do shit with, and then it's gonna go away. What do I like
Yeah, yeah.
what am I it's like a sandbox game. There's no actual levels. There's no boss monster. There's no official victory condition. There's no moment in which the credits roll.
Yeah.
It's a sandbox game. It's like in Minecraft. You're like, what do I want to build? Like, I wonder if I can do
Okay.
this.
So
Like, that is what I
I
would
agree
like to
with all
see.
of this. And
Yeah.
it actually
Okay.
like no, no, no. I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you. We're on the same page. We've been talking about this for an hour, and before we
We
break,
have. I love that we started with the topic. We're
I
gonna definitely gonna talk about this topic, and then we're immediately you
no,
mentioned a meme,
it's
and we spent an hour on the meme instead of
I
the
know.
topic.
It's
That's good.
okay. It's
Great.
okay. But I wanted before we close off this topic and take our break, I wanted to ask you because I've been thinking about science fiction and like, setting up alternative worlds. We just like I said, I've my class has been reading Le Guin, lots of alternative structures, etc. Right? She's fabulous at that. And um and so I'm curious. So like when I set up my jump space universe, I have this planet populated by refugees, but like refugees with money, right? Like they had
Yep.
fled religious persecution, and they were idealists. So they set up a society where I wanted progress in the future, right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
a little bit of like Star Trek-y kind of,
Hmm.
Roddenberry vision kind of person, right? And
Yeah.
so I didn't want to write about something that was exactly like what we have right now. So I'm like, okay, at the minimum, everyone gets shelter, everyone gets clothing, everyone gets food, right? No one starves on my planet, right? And everyone gets education. College is guaranteed, like all the way. But then
I like how you fast forward to a Roddenberryan utopian vision of the world, and you basically just came up with Europe. Anyway.
well, this is the problem. Like, well, I live in America, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
it's
yes.
not guaranteed for me or the people
Sure.
around me. So,
Sure.
that's a whole nother
I
thing,
mean,
right? I was,
it's a little glib for me to say that it's even guaranteed in Europe because, of course, there's people without papers. There's lots of,
well,
whatever.
and my
But
understanding is like the
just by
NHS in
comparison with
England is,
America.
well, no,
Yeah.
it's true, right? I mean, I was at this, for the Plurality University, we had this international conference that I attended via Zoom, and it was mostly Europeans. And I went to one session on environmental stuff, and they were these people from Finland and Sweden were having this very intense, very upset conversation about some nuanced thing that they, that we should be working towards and we weren't, and so on. And I, at the after a while, they were like asking for audience questions, and I was like, I'm in America. We are so far from being able to have the conversation you
That's
guys are
right.
having.
Either point A or point B, they sound equally utopian from
They
here.
sound amazing. I can't
Right.
imagine getting there,
Right.
So
Your worst case sounds pretty fucking good from here. Yeah. Anyway.
so anyway, so I construct this planet, and of course, you know, as fiction writers for drama, it's, I immediately do end up having class differences come up regardless. So even if
Yeah.
I've raised the minimum bar and no one's starving, but if you are poor, you can still be poor. You get algae, right? Maybe flavored algae, but that's basically it, right? It's going to keep you alive, nutrient rich, etc.
I mean,
You
the
get,
story you ended up writing is very much about, the emergence of class in a classless society, which is very interesting. Like
I
I mean, it
know,
sort of starts out with these classless ideals. It becomes this very like I don't know why your tone of voice implies that that's not what you wanted to write. I thought it
well,
worked great.
I guess I'm sort of frustrated by like, I mean, it reflects what I actually, I guess, think would happen,
This
which,
is like the C.S. Lewis thing. You know how we talked about how C.S. Lewis is like the starchy Anglican who has like specific ideas about salvation, and then he's
mm-hmm,
also just like fanboys paganism. So he has all
mm-hmm,
these things sneak in. He has to. Tolkien was very annoyed at him for putting in all these satyrs and things, but like
mm-hmm.
it's like his irrepressible imagination just kind of gets away.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like the same. You were like, I'm gonna write Roddenberryan utopia, and then like what's actually on the page is it's always more interesting. It's always more interesting what your unconscious mind makes you write than what your conscious mind had planned out.
Yeah. I mean, I like that nobody starves to death on my planet. That's good, right? And
I'm not saying it wouldn't be good, useful to stretch yourself to write something more authentically utopian. Like how go have another planet and see if you push farther.
I don't even know how I do that. Like I love Star Trek, but I've never actually bought into the whole moneyless thing, right? Like in classic
That's a
Trek,
shocking revelation from a
well,
trekker like yourself.
it's very
No, I just
hard,
mean
right?
because it's such a yeah.
I'm an ardent Star Trek person, but like,
Yeah.
they had this thing of like the Federation is this utopia and nobody needs money anymore. And I'm like, really? There aren't some nicer places to live than other places to live. There aren't, some
Oh,
people want to
those just might be allocated by like I mean
random chance.
no, not
Like,
necessarily random chance, but
yeah.
money isn't the only way to have a class system. Might be they're probably allocated by like how close you are to the directorate of
No, see,
like
that's
how
terrible
close
too.
you are in social
It's
space
supposed
to
to be a utopia. Come on, Jen. So it's a utopia. You can't do it that way either, right? And so when the Ferengi show up, and leaving aside
you're
all,
relieved.
yeah. Well, a little bit in that, like, it's, you know, I mean, there are huge problems with representations of the Ferengi. We'll put the, you
Yes.
know, put that to the side for the moment, but just the acknowledgement that there's such a thing as gold press latinum and that people in the Federation use it, right, is, you know,
Right.
like as
Right.
opposed to some very fluid, like if you want a fabulous, I mean, it's interesting because you have the replicators, right? So the replicators
Yeah.
do actually, like, it's like the Ian Banks and the culture novels, right? It is a culture of abundance far beyond what we have right now. So yes, you want a fabulous glittering outfit to wear to the Hugo Awards, the replicator will make it for you and it's not going to cost you anything, right? So they have raised it to some extent, but then there's, I don't know, I just always felt like, you know, is transit free between planets? Is there have to be some, there, not that there have to be, but it feels like there have to be some
Well,
things.
there does have to be something because in some sense, like like what you can't have, what you don't
Mhm.
get to have is the appetites that our competitive and scarcity driven system have
Mhm.
inculcated, and
Yeah.
also no competition over resources because
Yeah.
we have the appetites have been fostered in like for like we will always desire more. There is a second law of thermodynamics. So I
Mhm.
mean this was a big deal when Corey and I were writing True Names because it
Mhm.
really came out of a discussion of Corey being like, what if abundance impose
Mhm.
scarcity? And I was like, there's a second law of thermodynamics. As long as you always want more,
Well,
you
that's the
will
yeah.
never have enough. Like in that world, like
So
there's
has
like
there been, has anyone,
AIs.
mhm, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, in the True Names world, like there are these two competing intelligences, and one of them just wants more of itself, and like it takes over entire worlds, converts them to pure computronium so it can run
Mhm.
more instances. But there's still like all this scarcity and class inside of this
Yeah.
being because like you can't have there's only so much stuff and you can only move at the speed of light and like
Mhm.
you can't. I'm not in Star Trek, but you know what I mean. Like there's no we live in a finite universe. So the book, the science fiction book that I read in the last 20 years that most authentically captured a post-scarcity society was
Mhm.
Anthem,
Mhm.
um, Neil Stephenson's Anthem.
I haven't read
Just
that
be,
one, so yeah.
well, it's just because they're monks. I mean, it's just because
Mhm.
they're like medieval monks. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
just that's why it's a post-scarcity society because they don't particularly think that
So that
having
would,
stuff is the it's like
so this is
a
my
very plausibly
I,
read as post.
so I think that's my question for you, and I guess for the readers, is I'd be really curious to know what examples people have, not readers, listeners to the podcast. Tell me about your successful science fictional or fantasy imaginings of classless societies, because I'd like to read them and think about them more. I'm really interested in this question, whether it's because of it's somehow post scarcity or some other formulation. I just feel
Yeah.
like I've read very little. Le Guin tries to do some of it with kind of like, you know, her anthropological kind of work around gift culture and the emergence of
Yeah,
money and so on.
I
But
mean,
I'm like,
there's lots of Le Guin, there's lots of like there's the Dazzle of Day, but I think the important thing to point at is that class, it's like it's a verb. Do you know what I
mhm,
mean? It's like it's like we act like it's like, are there social classes in the society? And it's like, like we expect to find like class A and class B. And it's like even in the most, in the Le Guinian Hainish world or in the Quaker Starship on Dazzle of Day or whatever, where we most believe that they have kept inequality at bay is where
mhm.
we are most present to the active, constant, never completed, always imperfect work of keeping inequality at bay. Like that's all there is. There isn't a society where you arrive and like, no inequality ever. That's not that. I don't believe that. That's not humans.
But
I do
yeah,
believe in a society that has set itself to combat inequality, to create the conditions for everyone to have a symmetry of access and power and importance.
right.
Like I believe in people working on that,
Well,
right?
and I think I believe in, so just to touch on gift culture a little bit, I'll give another example. So part of the reason why I'm thinking about all of this economic stuff so much is that I opened a shop last week, right? Like a physical storefront. And so it's part of an incubator project. We pay like $200 a month in rent to this to the city of Berwyn that subsidizes the project, and it's all like 33 artisans in a single storefront. So it's like an outdoor fair but indoors. So and we each work 3 5-hour shifts a month. So I did my first shift yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, I'm 53. Retail is harder than it used to be." But it was interesting because so I'm sitting there, I'm watching people come up to my booth, and for 5 hours, I'm observing their interactions with them, and many people pick items up, and sometimes they buy, sometimes they put it down again. But there were these moments where like I have these like little resin rings that are $2 each that are like the cheapest item in my booth, and little kids would come up and pick them up and delight in them, and then their parents would say, no, put it back, whatever. And I just kept wanting to give them away, right? And so there's I guess the kind of concept of a gift culture, which I think has to be paired with a certain amount of abundance for it to be workable, right? This idea that if you're going to measure status, it's through your ability or your willingness, maybe willingness more than ability, right? If everyone, let's assume everyone
it's also ability.
No, but that's what I mean. I want to make it like, I want to postulate an abundance level such that everyone has the ability to give gifts, right? So, and then status are the ones who are willing to give gifts. I mean, this is the kind of like the idea of, and I don't know, like maybe this is too much of a moral thing. It's not, maybe this is something you're gonna object to, because it's not really about economic justice. I guess I'm sort of postulating the society that is already just, right? And then is there something we can reach for beyond that? And maybe
so I think that I'm very into this. This has been a cornerstone of my work, right? Like I read The Cathedral and the Bazaar back in the end of the 20th century. Like
I think I need you to give me
down in the out of.
You have to give me. I haven't read Cathedral and the Bazaar. You've got to give me a reading list. So go on.
I can give you a reading list. Cathedral and the Bazaar, The Gift by Lewis Hyde, Death the First 5,000 Years, and The Dawn of Everything by David Graeber, and the second one by David Wengrow as well. Like, and so I got really into this idea, and like I was on the post-scarcity train, and when Corey wrote Down and Out of the Magic Kingdom, I was like, damn, he got there first. And the guy, the Falling, and the guy who worked for money are in this world. And I've historically, there have been plenty of gift cultures. They aren't necessarily cultures of quality, right? Like in some ways, and even the stuff about the shtetl, even the thing I'm writing about the plot of The Ghost and the Golem, there's this whole thing about whether you're going to marry, a marriage is being arranged by your mom and the matchmaker between you and either the up and coming businessman or the daughter of the businessman, right? Of the town's reigning businessman, who's the gvir. The gvir is like the guy whose status in the town is because he's rich, but not just because he's rich, because being rich doesn't give you any status. Like if he just has a lot of money, nobody cares. It's because he gives away all the money, right? Like because he's giving away, and it's like, I don't know. And this is the thing, like, so I participated a lot in synagogue life. The kind of like, how much do you like put their name in the book if they gave money? Sure. There used to be like the good seats on the eastern wall of the synagogue had like the good seat. It's like the reason you got money, like the real currency of the shtetl is reputation. That's what matters. That's what's gonna have you live or die, flourish. And money is a way to get reputation. And the way you can convert money to reputation by giving to the millions of, like, there was so much of these, like, the Widow and Orphan Society, and that there's all these the Burial Society, there's all these things, and there's all this way that you could convert, you're making cash from the goyim, from the outside world. Right. You're doing, and then you bringing it in, and like by giving it to these things, that's what turns you into the gvir.
So
right?
I guess I'm not talking.
A miser has no status.
So I'm not really talking about reputation, right? So I kind of want to like, because I'm thinking, I mean, if we're going to stay biblical, right? There's that whole parable about the woman who like quietly puts her 2 pennies in versus the rich guy who makes a big show.
But when you talk anthropologically about gift culture, when you're talking about gift cultures like potluck cultures, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about a
Reputation.
culture in which the route to status is
Yeah.
giving things away, in which it's not in which things are exchanged, it's which in things are given. Now, I'm not saying that that's not the only kind of thing you could be talking about, and there certainly is a notion
Hmm.
of like there certainly is a like a group of a small enough group of humans will often just stop worrying about whose shit is whose and just make sure
Right.
everybody. Do you know what I mean? Like if you like it, we're all and it's interesting how like we live in this soup of capitalism and we're
Yeah.
focused on
Yeah.
those transactions, but we all also live outside of capitalism. Like if
Yeah.
you have a party and like you know what I mean, if you go to a potluck. It
Yeah.
literally, or like I don't know, if somebody gets a like drinks are on me. Like, you know what I mean? Like if somebody
Yeah.
gets
Yeah. Sure.
animal, everybody comes and eats, and you're not like
Yeah, I mean,
weighing and measuring and
you know,
paying.
like my mental model for that is the family unit, and the family can get
Yeah,
expanded a lot, right?
right,
Like,
right. The
so
family unit or we're going out,
yeah.
and it's interesting how those social relationships. And one of the interesting things is to note that like if you like what a gift is, like if you like a gift by definition has a like is unquantifiable. If you give somebody something for their birthday and you also tell them how that's why your gift receipts, right? You give them like, I've given you this hat. Oh, that's lovely. It was 12.56. No longer a gift. You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's quantified. They
Mm-hmm.
kind of owe you 12.56 exactly now,
Right,
as
right.
opposed to you've given them a gift, and then in a future time they
Mm-hmm.
will give you a gift, and those draw you closer. The thing about knowing the exact number is it separates you. It's like now
Mm-hmm.
we're quits. We're even.
Mm-hmm.
You gave me this, I gave you that. Nothing. That's how transactions are designed in an exchange economy to keep you strangers. Like
Right.
exchange economy is optimized for long distance trade between strangers who don't trust each other, right? You give me
Mm-hmm.
this, I give you exactly that. We're done. And that's why this sort of economic illusion, like this just so story about barter, it's like, well, originally people invented money because they were bartering like 2 sheep for a cow. And then they were like, it would be simpler if we had a common unit of exchange. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this economic fable. Never actually happened because
Right.
only long distance traders did exact changing like that. People didn't give 2 sheep for a cow. They would give you a cow and then
Yeah.
later, like they'd give you some sheep. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
gifting is a core because it creates bonds. It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody pre-money was ever like the price of this cow is 2 sheep because that would imply there was a standard price for all persons, which is absurd. I'm not going to give the cow
Mm-hmm.
for the same consideration to my possible father-in-law or my rival or the king or the beggar. Like that, what? Why would that have the same price in all cases, right? Like it obviously how what I'm going to take in exchange for this cow, even if we do an exchange, is very dependent on what I feel about you.
So
Like that would be a,
interesting. I mean,
you know what I mean?
some
Like,
I mean, I see what you're saying, but like, for example, we have a free to a good home group here in Oak Park,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
people give things out on it all the
sure.
time,
Oh yeah, well that's
constantly.
a no. I'm not talking. I'm
And
not saying there. Obviously, there's gifts which are
right.
free, but I'm saying if I even
But
was
there's
going
a
to make an
certain
exchange,
there is a certain oh, yeah, yeah, okay. I guess yeah. So the gifts are I mean, there is a certain like we're all participating in this gift exchange
yeah. Well, that's
kind of
gift economy, right?
thing.
No, I agree.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
let me rephrase.
Okay.
Nobody ever has a set price for a thing that they're giving someone unless the set price is zero. If it's zero, then that's, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Because then if it's zero, it's kind of like about participation in the community, support for a common
Right.
project, or status, or it's like I gave this thing. Like people would, the potluck cultures are famous because people would compete to have more
Mm-hmm.
and more extravagant. And that's how you became, the big guy is like, I had this party. And that's true everywhere. That's true in Siena, whichever contrada, where Italian
Mm-hmm.
town where I lived for 6 months, whichever contrada wins the big horse race bankrupts itself,
Well, this is what
putting on a party for the rest of the city.
Indian
Yeah,
weddings are like that,
yeah,
right? Like,
exactly. You
yeah,
bankrupt yourself, and that produces this, and it's very
yeah,
often quite a rational thing to do to bankrupt
mm,
yourself of money because money is not the most important and
mm,
reliable unit of exchange. Your reputation is far more useful than
mm,
a bunch of money. So if you can bankrupt yourself and thereby acquire a lot of reputation, better currency. Anyway, I'm just saying it isn't like the fact that people are, um, because even the way you framed it, where you're like, well, it's not the capacity to give. We can all give because we're never all equally able to give. Some people
mm.
who sing a song are going to sing it better. If I sing a song as a
Sure.
gift to the party, somebody else is going to sing it better than me, right? Like it never actually is equal, right? But like we're all able to give, but it's the willingness to give. But even once
Mm,
you say it's the willingness to give, you're talking about status. You're saying you're distinguishing between those who are willing and those who are unwilling, and those who are willing have more status. Otherwise, you'd be like, we don't care if you like, because another attitude is like some people give, some people don't. We don't even remember who gave and who did. Whatever, as long as there's enough gifts,
I mean,
we don't care.
there are anonymous gifts, right? I mean,
Yes. Well, I'm not saying there aren't anonymous gifts, but I'm saying like when you say
like we
what we value is the willingness to give. You're still creating, in
no,
a
but
way, a hierarchy of those who are willing versus those who are unwilling.
that's interesting. I don't know. We
Even if it's
have,
not a public hierarchy, even if you only know in your heart that you're the one who gave, you can walk around internally knowing that you're the best one because you gave the most, even though you don't know what everybody else gave. Do you know what I mean? Like
I think,
it's still like
I think I can live with it if we get to that point where that's all we have
anyway.
left. That would
I
be
mean, I
amazingly utopian, is I guess what
Sure.
I'm saying.
I mean, I'm very
Yeah.
interested in these kind of societies. I guess I'm just saying where we started this little section
Mm,
was that I was saying I believe in a utopia in which there's the constant work of making things equal. I don't believe in a
mm,
utopia where it's just equal and nobody questions it and the issue never comes up. I can't imagine that
yeah.
as part of human nature. I
Well,
can
and
imagine
yeah.
humans who have the value, because I've
Hmm.
seen it and you see it all the
Yeah,
time
yeah.
in different contexts, the value of who privilege connection over hoarding. That I can believe. But it's work, right? There have to be mechanisms by which we mitigate against inequality and produce equality. And inequality is one axis, and gifting is another, because you can have a society that's very big on gifting and very unequal, right?
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, and one thing I end up saying in my classes a lot is that, society runs on the, labor of women, right? The unpaid labor of women. And, so I just want to like call out, like, gifted labor is also
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah,
type of gifting, and it's
totally.
a type of gifting that gets exploitative and gets expected unevenly of different groups, right? And
Sure.
so
Yeah.
so it becomes, is it a gift if you have no choice but to give it, right? Like,
Right. Right.
so
Right.
um so yeah, I don't know, we're not really
Yes.
disagreeing. I think I was just, and even when Ian Banks
No, I
was
don't think we're
writing the
disagreeing.
culture novels, right? I mean, his novels, I think it's been a while since I read them, but I remember Player of Games and it's the other one I really liked. I'm gonna blank on the title, but that they take place at the edges of the culture. They don't take
Yep.
place in the
Mm-hmm.
society that is just abundance culture. I don't know what that's like.
Mm-hmm. Partly
The
because it's just off the map. Yeah.
interesting stories happen at the edges where there's like room for competition and things to rise and fall and so on, right? So
Yeah. Although I just think there isn't a society. I mean, it's a useful technique to place off the page some, but I think that I don't think I'd have any problem writing something set in the heart of the culture where there's plenty of competition, and you know what I mean? It's just like we're almost desensitized to I mean, particularly Americans are like, well, if somebody's not starving, that's not scarcity. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But I mean,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
there's a lot of scarcity of like attention, consideration, respect,
Sure,
status. Like,
sure. I mean,
that's a lot. There's a lot of grand dramas
so
that are
you
really
mentioned,
about people
yeah,
murder
yeah.
quickly over lack of respect. Like, they don't
Right,
need
right, right.
they don't need to be starving. You know what I mean? Like,
No, no, it's true. It's true. Family dramas have that a lot, right?
yeah,
So,
I
and
mean, Lear is not really about who's got the money. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
No, no, no,
It's
sure.
nobody's starving in Lear, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Well, and you mentioned Molly Gloss's Dazzle of Day, right? And I was going to
yeah.
push back against it because I was like, well, that's an isolated generation ship, and it's like this little group of people. But that said, it does play out like they're sharing resources communally. There's still plenty of room for conflict, right? You would,
Yeah, I mean, also, it's not that small. It's not like a family. It's like the size of a small town. You know what I mean? It's like an isolated. I mean, I feel like it's hundreds at
I know, well,
least.
but I think they define themselves essentially as a family, right?
Well,
Think that's,
yes,
yeah.
sure. Well,
So
as many
right,
cultures do,
and
but I'm just saying it's not
that's
like
kind of
five
what.
people.
No, I know, but I mean, like, the isolation matters because it's not them in relationship to some other groups, right? It's really just them, right, on
I
the
mean, that
ship
does make it
traveling
more
through space.
complicated, but I feel like
Yeah,
often these experiments are.
yeah,
I mean, in a sense, that's what if you're talking about the heart of the culture, it's like, well, that's what you're
yeah,
saying. Like the stories are written about the
yeah,
culture interacting others, but the culture, even if it's a trillion entities, it's still, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like as long as they're all playing by the same rules, it's its own. But anyway, often Liguidian worlds are like also the some
yeah.
enclave with I don't know. Anyway, I don't know that it. I mean, I think the question is, yeah, like what feels like one of the things that fiction does is draw this experiment and then you see if you buy it. You know what I mean? Like what you're saying about Star Trek. It's like Roddenberry can say all he likes
Yeah,
that there's no money and it's an abundant society, but you're like,
yeah,
yes, but how does that play out? Like they still seem really interested in playing poker. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like where did they get the idea? There's a great German song uh about uh called Hooray, the World is Ending.
Hmm.
It's a great kind of German communist song, Hurrah, die Welt geht unter. And it's the video for it has them. I don't know. It's like after a nuclear war, and they're like really psyched because it ended capitalism, basically. And
Mm.
so there's this bit where the kids are trying to play Monopoly. They're trying to explain Monopoly to
Yeah.
the children. They're living in this kind of like post-nuclear paradise where they're all like having fun and enjoying life, and they're trying to explain the Monopoly to the kids. And the Monopoly are like, I don't. Why would I want to take his stuff? Like
Yeah.
that song feels like a very effective piece of science fiction,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
Particularly that bit.
I'd love to hear from people what they, if there are things that I've missed or that you've missed that do a good
Sure.
job of exploring this issue. I think it'd be interesting. I'd like to read more along these
Yeah.
lines.
I mean,
Um,
also the another example is like the dandelion networks in Ruthana, who Ruthana Emrys is,
well, I
who
was
just talked
thinking,
to
yeah, I was thinking about Ruthana's
Half Built
just
World.
now. I was thinking about her work in our conversation last time, but like again, the the novel takes place at this intersection of
Yeah.
conflicting societal
Sure.
structures,
And the
right? And so,
corporations definitely do it. But the thing is, we see the dandelion. We also see that what's valuable in the dandelion works are a classic gifting
mhm.
reputation economy because everybody contributes and that's expected and there's enough for everyone. And then they're really obsessed with their weighting. There's a bit at
Mm,
which the algorithm gets subverted and their weights are off, and so they can't contribute. They're super frustrated because they can't contribute to the conversation
sure.
because they're hard won like reputational capital that makes their comments be like taken
Well,
seriously
I mean,
has eroded. You know,
this is
so
what my rant was about the other day, that one of the big problems of publishing right now
yes,
is the indie publishers
yes,
and the choking of the Facebook algorithms, where
yeah,
all of my hard-won social media capital, my
exactly,
30,000 followers, are not
yeah,
seeing what I say. So
right,
I'm like, they can't even
yeah,
judge me because they can't see it, because the
yeah, yeah.
corporations have messed with it. So I was like, I
That's
should
what
write.
happens when that's what happens when they're like they open the gates and they beckon you in. We all had blogs. Remember we had a blogs?
Yeah,
We all had a
yeah.
blog
I
roll. We would click on our friend's blog roll and then they opened the shiny gates and they were like, "Come in. It's all free. The user interface is so nice. You can
Okay, so
find
this
everyone
this
here."
is why my paranoia kicks in. That because I still have my blog. I've copied over everything I've posted to Facebook
Yeah,
to
but
the
nobody
blog.
looks on the blog anymore. Nobody looks on the blog anymore because I mean,
They don't
maybe
look on the blog
yours is
now.
the oldest to the internet. But the thing is, everybody got sucked in. It wasn't just the
Everyone got
writers who
sucked
got
in.
sucked in. The readers got
No,
sucked
no,
in.
I agree. I
It's so
agree.
easy.
I
It's a feed.
agree.
It comes to you. It's exactly like the self checkout. It's exactly
Yeah.
like instead of going and making small talk with the checkout person, you just beep your things at the self checkout. The feed comes to you. An algorithm has decided which things you should read, and it just soothingly rolls them in front of your nose instead of you having to go and click on Marianne's blog and be like,
I
"What
agree.
is Marianne
Although,
saying?"
although I think I do have a feed thingy set up so that you can
Well,
subscribe
an
to it
RSS
now.
feed, sure.
Yeah, yeah, and so it
Yes.
come to you.
Yes,
So
but then they
yes,
have to right, sure, but that's just you. But I mean what I'm saying is
yeah, yeah.
having to decide like first I'll check out Marianne and then I'll check out Ben and then maybe I should like doing that work of being like who should I go visit
Mm-hmm.
today? That's been taken away from you because the algorithm will just feed to you. And now that they have you, now that
Yeah.
they control all your waking life, they give you whatever they want to give you, which is what will make them money, not
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
what'll make
no.
the indies money. So yeah, that's like I don't know, like yeah.
I want a technical solution to that, Ben, but we can talk about that another time.
Well,
So
you know what's cool is, I
yeah.
mean, I don't know what's going to happen with social media. I really hope. I mean, I don't know. I, I kind of think there's this glorious moment of hubris where, like, particularly renaming Twitter X, like, where it just seemed like the
Mm,
giants are screwing themselves over.
mm,
And there's this proliferation, and so now I like got on Blue Sky and Mastodon and all that. And I mean, there are lots of them. It's really interesting to see the debates and how they're problematic for
mm.
different reasons. Lots of people hate them. Lots of people think of Mastodon as a bunch of homeowners associations. Lots of people think of Blue Sky as like, the return of Jack Dorsey and like problematic for I don't know, like. But but it's really fun to see them emerge. And what I like about them, as imperfect as any one of the things may be, I also got on Tumblr for the first time. I don't know,
Mm,
whatever. As imperfect as any of these may be, what's interesting about them is that for Blue Sky, for instance, the algorithm, which of course Facebook and Twitter, massive proprietary data-driven algorithms, which you don't know why it's showing you what it's showing you, and you can never tell what your
mm,
fans will see or whatever. The cool thing about Blue Sky is it may be, I don't know, I don't have any particular opinion about Jack one way or another, but lots of people don't like exactly how it's owned or set up or whatever. But the code, which I care about because
mm-hmm.
I'm a coder guy, like my understanding is that a lot of the code at least is open and that it's federated, which means you could just set up your own thing. Less
Mm,
so than Mastodon. Mastodon's kind of more pure free software. I don't exactly know where Blue Sky lands. But what I was going to say is what's interesting about Blue Sky is you can go pick your algorithm and you could
mm,
code an algorithm. You could be like, I'd like to see my people who I've liked at least 5 of their posts. I'd
right.
like to see the 5 most recent posts in pure chronological order. You can just code that up and like upload it and offer it to
Right.
everyone. So that's a
Nice.
really interesting thing because I think we've all been complaining about this mysterious opaque algorithm that like extracts our attention and feeds on us and is optimized to control us. You can actually pick your own open source algorithm on Blue
Mm,
Sky, and I think Mastodon may just be purely like I find Mastodon harder to navigate because it's a little bit like I think it's just most recent first. And the thing about it is that the algorithm is kind of useful. I mean, it is like
mm-hmm.
most
Sure.
everybody's been saying like I just want most recent first. I don't care. The fact is that if you follow a lot of people because
Sure.
I mean, if you're a softie like me and if somebody follows you, you're like, okay, you know what I mean? Or like not always, but like
Mm,
if I'm like, oh, I know this person, if you're not like
mm,
super curating it, then like and also, even if you curate it, it's like, well, sometimes you might be particularly interested in what you'd have to have like a bunch of different lists of sets of friends and decide which one. And the thing about the algorithm is that like it is useful to be like a lot of people liked this thing. Maybe you should see it, right?
right.
That the heart of that is one piece of utility, but then it becomes this opaque monster that they use to just suck
I
you into doom
mean,
scrolling. I
Facebook
like the idea
is,
of designing your own algorithm.
yeah,
Like, you know
no,
what
no,
I
I
mean?
like
Like,
it. I agree. I mean, if you can design it and then make it easy for non-coders to do the same,
oh yeah, you just
that'll be
plug it
good.
in. This is a
Yeah,
list of them. It's
yeah.
like a little marketplace where you're
Oh,
like, do I want
yeah.
this one or this one? They just have a description. You pick it, and then it becomes like a feed that you can go look at. Like you can go
Okay.
look at like
I
recent
have
posts from
clearly,
friends or
I
whatever.
like, I'm on Blue
Anyway,
Sky, but I have not explored it that much yet. So
anyway,
clearly,
so I don't know. I don't know if any of these things will survive. I don't know if they'll
yeah.
turn out to be just as bad. I do feel like I think honestly, I don't know. There's also a lot of problems with Wikipedia. Like I'm sure it would be interesting if someone to talk about things that like about the culture that didn't work or like
Hmm.
edit wars or whatever. But I gotta say, just zooming out to this broad picture, I almost can't believe we got Wikipedia. Like everything else
Mm,
became this private corporate run algorithm, which is
right.
gradually shittier and shittier. Wikipedia, for all its problems of, I'm sure there's like cabals of different people who are obsessed with different things and edit wars or whatever, it's still owned by us. Like it's just
Mhm.
stuff that the people made and they could put everything they want
Yeah,
there, which is both
yeah,
its blessing and its curse, but it worked. Like it's the only, it didn't, we used, everything used to be like that in the sort of early
yeah,
days of
yeah.
the internet. It was all like just people making stuff. And now it's all like, the internet had this brief moment where the corporations didn't understand it yet. So it was just people giving
Mm,
stuff to each other. And like, then they figured it out and got smart and took over everything. And now everything is owned by robber barons again, except Wikipedia and
hmm.
like the infrastructure, like
Yeah,
Apache and like
yeah, yeah,
all the
yeah.
like infrastructure stuff is all free. But like Wikipedia is the only consumer product that
Right.
like we got to keep. That's I don't know. I guess there's like LibreOffice or whatever, but I don't know if anybody uses that. You know what I mean? But it's like Wikipedia, everybody uses it established itself as a thing that everybody uses, and somehow it's not inside a capitalist firewall. Like that's like whatever you
So
think about Jimmy
should we
Wales or whatever.
all should all of us be like working towards making a social media network that is like the Dandelion networks, that's like
Well,
community
that
owned, et cetera, so
yes,
on? Yeah.
yes, and I think that is the idea of
Yeah.
Mastodon. For instance, Mastodon is like purely open source and whatever. Part of the thing is that
If they could make Mastodon prettier and easier to join, that would be
yes. Well,
nice.
that's always the
Yeah.
problem. Open source
Yeah.
turns out to be really good for things that techies use where you don't
Yeah.
care that much about the user interface. I
Yeah.
don't know how Wikipedia pulled off making a
Yeah.
usable interface with an open source project because most of the things, like
Yeah.
most people who use Linux or Apache don't care that much about the bells and whistles of the
Mm.
interface. That's what the corporations have been really good at. So,
Yeah.
like, yes, I guess it would be really nice if we. I mean, Blue Sky's pretty. It's not
No,
entirely open, but it's somewhat open,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah.
usable. But yes, it would be nice if Mastodon like I mean, I'm sure somebody could make a skin for Mastodon. But
What
anyway,
is it?
it's an interesting problem. Um, I'm
Right, because
sure we could.
I joined, but that's why I don't use it. Like it's
Yeah,
not
it's
as
not pretty enough.
attractive. Like why do
Yeah.
I buy Apple products? Because they're pretty.
Yep.
I mean, more than anything else,
Yep.
I'm paying a
Ooh,
premium
shiny.
for the
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah,
No,
like
it's
and
yeah. That's we like shiny, and corporations are really good at making
and
shiny things that are pretty.
and to be fair, you said the social media has gotten shittier and shittier. It has for what I want it for. It has gotten better and better at selling me things. So like I have multiple
Hmm.
times in the
Well,
past year bought things off Facebook that
yep.
like I'd never. I mean, I've been on Facebook forever, right? I've never
Yep.
done that before, but it's gotten very good at now
I
targeting what
mean,
I want to
I mean
buy,
that is
right?
that just shows you
Yeah,
how manipulable we are in a way.
yeah,
Like it because it's like the
yeah.
thing worked. So like
Mm-hmm.
in a way, what's interesting is it's like those were the marching orders. That's what
Mm-hmm.
the VC and the markets told them. They told
Yeah.
them, and it's true of all of these media, all of these just tech companies that are
Mm-hmm.
consumer focused, is that initially the VCs are like, make a beautiful thing and give it away for free to everyone until everyone wants
Mm-hmm.
it. Make sure you have ownership. Make sure don't share the data, don't share the code, keep a lock on everything, but make for consumers this beautiful thing that they will want that's better than everything else and give it away for free until you
Yeah.
have billions of people and then
Mm-hmm.
or at least hundreds of millions in Twitter's case. And then you should and then at some point, like, because they're invested, the VCs are giving you money to do this until you own everybody. And once you've
Mm-hmm.
driven away all the like individual blogs and like,
Mm-hmm.
most of the newspapers have folded and whatever, then we turn up the screws and they change the algorithm. So, okay, now instead of making it, Corey wrote an essay about this recently about the enshittification. Instead of making it as delightful as possible so that
Mm-hmm.
everyone will use it. Now everyone always use it. So now turn the quality down and the extraction up
Mm-hmm.
until it's just at the point where people won't leave. Like
Right.
don't make it so crappy that people will leave, they have to stay, but you don't have to make it good anymore. It can be as crappy as possible. Get get them paying. Get them
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Like I hate it and I'm buying things from it. Like that's exactly
Mm-hmm.
where they turn the knobs. That's the design, right? It's like
Yeah.
you capture the world and then you're like, okay, now extract from it. So the only thing we get is like the brief window of when they're
Mm-hmm.
still like so now everybody's on TikTok because TikTok is still in the phase of like make everybody in the world like it. They haven't yet turned the knobs to like
Mm-hmm.
extract money and make it shitty, just shitty enough that they won't like just not shitty enough that they won't leave. Like TikTok's not in that phase of cycle yet. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to either keep hopping to the next thing for the brief moment in which it's not shitty, or maybe you
Or we
could
have to build a
or
non-corporate
maybe we
thing.
make our own things that we
Yeah.
share with one another like in the old days. Because what the corporations figure out how to
Yeah.
do, what's the genius of it is to figure out how to harness the impulse of people to share with each other and entertain each other and connect with each other. It, that
Yeah.
they own
Yeah.
our relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's dystopian.
No, no,
Okay.
I'm going with the utopian. We're gonna build the dandelion networks. We're gonna we've now defined the problem and now we need the next generation because we're tired, but the next generation to come and fix it and
Oh,
build the
I think we're still required to pitch in.
no, I'm cheering them on. Build the open source social
Yeah, I
media
don't know.
networks.
I
So,
mean,
all
I'm not
right.
saying you have to code it, but you're going to definitely have to champion it. You're not off the
No,
hook.
no, I'll champion.
Use it. You have to
I'll
learn how
cheer
to use
away.
it.
I'll
That's
cheer
the hard part.
away.
Before you can champion, you have to learn how to use it. So that
Yeah, yeah.
that's going to be the
Make it pretty. I'll test it for you.
yeah
So yeah,
yeah.
no. Get all the geeks on board and then we'll all right. I don't know. I hope so. I hope so because I think we need it and it feels like for publishing and indie artists in general, it does feel like a turning point of
Well, I mean, and
where like I don't know what the other solution would be,
well,
right?
and the
Yeah,
thing is though, is that social media. Who knows if there will even, you know what I mean? Like, well, I'm not saying there won't be social media. There are still telegraphs, but I mean, like in a way, it's like the attention of the world has been on social media to the extent that we feel like, well, that's just part of human life. Like, surely there will
yeah,
always be social media, and we're writing far future novels in which there's basically social media on steroids, right? But in some ways, like maybe not. Like I can
yeah.
easily imagine even if we're not just huddled over campfires
Yeah.
with in the scratching on
Hmm. Yeah.
parchment in 50 years, which easily might be I can, even if we have the internet, I can still I can also imagine that people are like social media. That's so early 20th
No,
century, right?
no, no,
Or
and
late 21st century.
I could see that too. But it has, so I mean, on the one hand, I'm old and I don't carry my phone around with me all the time, and people are bewildered that they can't reach me.
Yeah,
And
right.
you know, and we had this whole thing at the high school where last year where they decided to like have everyone put their phone in a holder in the front of the class so that nobody had phones during class. And people were like, "Oh, the kids are never going to go with it," and the kids were fine. The kids were
Yeah,
like, "No,
yeah.
this is not a problem," right?
So much better.
So I think we can opt out of being constantly connected, and I wouldn't be surprised if like society evolves in that way as like more and more people are like, like I'm
Hmm.
addicted to scrolling at 11 o'clock at night when I should be sleeping, and
Yep.
this is not workable, right? This is
Yeah,
now
yeah, yeah, yeah,
becoming,
yeah,
so I can see
yeah.
that. However, I would
There
hate
is
to,
some level of immune system that you can develop, that people
you
may
can,
develop to
like
certain
that's the thing. Like, I mean, like
infections.
I could see like a social structure emerging that has, I mean, already we see some of this like kind of social codes that like you're going out to a nice dinner party, maybe you put all your phones in a basket or, whatever, right? Or you put them face down on the table so you're not looking at them, whatever it might be. But I would hate to see social media go away in general because I mean, I guess I still have the early internet excitement in me of like how incredible that we are able to find and connect with all of these people. I mean, just what a boon it was
Yeah,
for
well, I mean, it's part.
LGBTQ kids, what a boon, like
I mean,
that.
it depends on how broadly you're defining social network. If you want to go back and say that Usenet and MUDs are social network,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
much
yeah.
broader
Yeah,
definition. That's
yeah.
a much
That I
broader
guess
definition.
so I guess
If we're
that's a
talking about the 2007-ish inflection
yeah.
point where everybody was like on Usenet and email and blogs and MUDs and whatever, and then they
Mhm.
got on Facebook and Twitter and they're ill. Like that
Yeah.
moment that happened, like that's the more narrow definition of social
Right,
media. Like,
right.
okay,
Yeah.
let's say MySpace. We
Yeah,
won't
yeah.
restrict it to Facebook and Twitter, but like MySpace and whatever. Like where it's like you have a
And live journal and
unified, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Live journal is kind of a transitional thing between blogs and,
Yeah.
but yeah, but live journal sort of, I guess, where you have a like this sort of broad flat space where everyone in the world can be found and they're funneled towards each other and
Hmm.
able to, and that,
Hmm.
but interestingly, like I was talking to my, when I got on Tumblr, I think I was talking to my kids and they were like, well, Tumblr's not actually a social network. Like it's not, Tumblr's not a social network. And what they
Hmm.
mean by that is Tumblr's tag based. Tumblr's a topic network. Tumblr,
Hmm.
I got like more likes on a post from Tumblr than I've ever got. I made a joke about I made a Tumblr post where I was like, uh, widespread archaeological evidence suggests suggests that early 21st century acknowledged the existence of three genders: men, women, and employees only. Right, and so this is my quip. I put it on Tumblr.
Hmm.
I put it on all the networks. It's kind of an interesting test case. It got some traction on Twitter. It got like 4 likes
Hmm.
on Blue Sky. Interesting, it got 4 likes on Blue Sky, but also more conversation on Blue Sky than
Right.
anywhere else. And on Tumblr, it got like, I don't know, some ridiculous number of like tens of thousands of likes. And I told my kids that, and they were like, "Yeah, you'll never see those people again. They don't know who you are. You
Mm.
haven't formed a connection. They don't follow you." The way
Right.
Tumblr works is they Googled something relevant and then they retag it, right? So somebody was like,
Yeah,
"This is a
yeah.
funny joke about gender," or "This is funny." There was like archaeology reblogs, gender reblogs, like a bunch of people reading the thing in a bunch of different
Yeah,
ways,
yeah.
forking it off to different communities. They were like, "That's 0 followers for you." So that's like a funny thing
Yeah,
that it's not
yeah.
exactly social media in the
So
sense that like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so I've recently been started watching and creating reels on Facebook, right? Which
okay,
is, I resisted for a long time, mostly because
yeah,
Facebook wanted me to do it, but
yeah, yeah,
fine,
yeah.
whatever. And I have now found like what I find useful in reels is
Mm-hmm.
they are great for crafting. I mean, they are really
Mm-hmm.
the best thing if you like, I saw this thing that somebody made and I want to know how they made it.
Yeah,
And
uh-huh.
I search it up in Reels. I want
Yeah,
polymer clay bookmarks, is what I was doing last night. And a
somebody
whole
showing you
bunch
how.
of them show up and they're like 30 to 90 seconds each. So you can
Yeah,
quickly winnow through to find the ones you want and you see the
yeah,
technique being made. And then if you need to investigate it further, you can investigate it further, but it is better for that purpose than anything else. On Facebook, you can like a post, but you can't follow the person who made it. You have to go to Instagram to
The
do it.
real. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Trying
it's
to funnel you
interesting
to
because
Instagram
like
that's
Facebook and Instagram are
they're trying
functionally
to funnel you
different.
to Instagram because that's still growing. Facebook is static basically, and Instagram they're still trying to push people to.
So I would say that like right now, reels are more topic based on Facebook, but more social based on Instagram, right? There's still, so which is interesting because it is on my to-do list to like spend more time on Instagram because I do craft and that is where the crafters hang out. So so the writers maybe on Blue
yes,
Sky,
I've been told to get an Instagram several times. I should probably get an Instagram. No, because I went to, I mean, like I found my book in a bookstore and they took a picture and they were like, it's going to be on Instagram. We can tag you. And I was like, I don't have a, yes. And so, yeah, Instagram also where the kids are, whatever. But, but anyway, so there's a couple of different, I guess I'm saying there's a couple of different questions. One is connectivity. How much will we be on our phones? One is how much we'll be on our phones talking to one another, including talking to strangers in one way or another. And then there's specifically social networking in the sense of I am a node in a chain of nodes. There are people who follow me or I follow them or we're friends or whatever, where it's like I've accumulated this this sort of, this sort of interlocked network of people sort of seeing things from each other in some kind of weighted way. And like that, I don't know. Like that could die. Like that could go away. I don't know. I my kids, I feel like my kids are burned out on social networking. I feel like they're on their phones a lot, but a lot of it is chat. Like a lot of it is WhatsApp, right? A lot of it is like
my daughter is texting with her friends.
Yeah, I want to talk to these 10 people. I want to talk to this group. Like life being mediated through group chats. And in a way, I feel like that sort of is a return to that's what we were doing with our blogs, right? Like, I mean, not exactly, because the blogs had a possibility that strangers could wander by or you could forward it to someone or whatever. A group chat is truly closed, but it almost feels like the group chat or the it's also like an interlocking set of group chats. So we've got the group chat with these 7 friends, and we have a subgroup chat for the 4 of those 7 friends who aren't sick of me geeking about philosophy. And then we've got the like the subset and then the broader one. Anyway, but that's like the official one and the unofficial one. Anyway, but the group chats like mitosising and meiosising and metastasizing is like I feel like it's almost like an immune reaction to social media, to like the being controlled, having Zuckerberg own your network. It's like a recrafting of like your individual, like I want to talk to these 10 people.
It's also overwhelming, right? I mean, like in my job space universe, people have chips in their heads, so there is no putting down your phone. You're always connected. But I realized like I couldn't write that in a way that felt realistic to me unless people mostly were muted. Like right? Like, like because I think human beings are still going to prioritize in-person interaction, or not necessarily in person, but individual interaction a lot of the time, right? So like, so I'm writing scenes where like, there's like one scene has like 2 people who are working a sort of mindless, tedious job, 2 friends across the room from each other. And so of course they're going to be chatting with each other on the net on their chips while they're doing their job and dealing with the members of the public in a kind of mechanical way. Like that I can see happening. Whereas I don't think they're going to be doing their job and engaging fully in social media at the same time, right? Like it's kind of, I don't think our brains are set up for it.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of that is an interface problem. It depends what you mean by engaging fully. The social media that we have is a certain state, but you could certainly imagine that there are ways that you could be like you can easily be doing your jobs and looking at a soccer game, or you could, you know what I mean? Like you could easily be.
But you only have so much attention, right? I guess that's what I'm saying.
There's some economy of attention.
Like,
but there's a lot of ways that we could divide it up.
I can knit and play D&D. I was doing that yesterday. I can work the checkout register and chat with my coworker or chat with a customer or look at my phone in between things. But I can't work the register and be in the midst of a simultaneous argument on whatever, right? Like even if the chip was in my head.
Well, you can't, but easily in 15 years, it will not be
Mhm.
very hard for you to train an AI that will sound like Marianne in that conversation and then escalate to you anything if it feels like it's getting out of its depth. Like where it's basically like I'm having this, my AI simulacrum is having an argument with these trolls on Facebook, and if it thinks it's worthy of my attention, it'll ping me. Like that, you know what I mean? Like I don't
Okay.
know. Like it's a lot of like you're talking about a far future planet where they have
No,
chips
no,
in
no.
their heads.
Well,
There's a lot of UI between here and there, right? There's a lot of
I can
possible.
imagine the tech you're talking about, and we were going to talk about AI today, so I think this is
Yes,
we should wrap. My
a
computer's
potential
about
segue or at least a
yeah,
teaser for next
yeah.
time.
Well, and my computer's about to run out of power, so
Yeah.
let's
I'll
work
let you go.
towards wrapping.
Yeah, we can wrap.
But I do think like that then raises the question of like, do I trust the AI to do that? Do I want an AI representing me in an internet argument? I don't know. Even if it's a
Yeah,
very good
but
AI.
I mean,
And
but
like,
it's the
where's the
but that's the
fun is
but
like
that's
if I'm not
exactly the
engaging
kind.
myself.
But I mean, if
But
you
yeah,
I hear all those reservations, but I
yeah.
do feel like that's me when they put in the self checkout line, being like,
No,
"Fuck
no,
that! I'm not gonna like I
it
that's
might, no, no,
those
it might be.
reservations." Those
No, maybe
reservations sound like the reservations I've had time and time again about a new
I
thing, being
know.
like, this is going to be unreliable and shitty and weird, and there's all these unexpected
No,
consequences,
I
and then we
know.
do it anyway.
No,
Like,
no,
I mean, it's
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm just saying that this is when writers freak out about AI taking our jobs and so on. And this I do think is next time's topic. But um so I think like not only do I have no temptation to have AI write for me because like it can write me a business letter, I suppose, but I don't want it writing my fiction. I don't, I have no interest in that. Like what is interesting to me as a writer, and other people may feel differently, is you know communicating my thoughts, right? Like so that's one point. But also as a reader, like if I go actually visual arts is easier for me to say, like if a corporate office has artwork on the walls that's computer generated, I don't care. Maybe it makes it prettier. Fine, right? I'm not going to go, I don't know that I'm going to go to a museum to see that, right? Because if I'm going to a
do you
museum,
have any?
I
You have
want,
cast iron pans, right?
well, hold on a second. Let
Finish
me
your thought
finish
about
my
the museum.
thought.
Yes,
If
you
I go
want
to
to
a
go. Yeah,
museum, I want the connection to a person. I want, so, and because we're using AI here is not real AI, right? So
we are going to
we're
talk about this
yeah,
next
next week.
time,
Yeah,
and I think there's plenty to say there, and all and like though that in the context of the conversation we're having now, which I think we should get into, is it going to steal our
yeah.
jobs and is it real art and
Mm-hmm.
all that? We should get into that. That sounds interesting. But in the context of the conversation we were having, which is about like social media and how things evolve, and I was like, there could be an AI trained to be like you arguing on social media, and
Yeah.
you're like, why would I do that? I guess what I would say is, do you have cast iron pans?
We have one, I don't use it.
You don't?
Mm-mm.
Oh. I love cast iron pans. It's even better to me. They're just, if you actually treat it well and temper it and everything, it's better. Like it's a better pan. It lasts forever. We keep throwing out Teflon pans every couple of years. They get scratched. But you
They're
can't buy
too
them anymore. They're
they're
really
too
hard to buy.
well, so cast iron pans are too heavy for my hands. That's the
Okay.
problem,
Well, anyway,
right? So
there's a lot of things like this where
yeah.
it's like many people didn't choose. Like nobody chose strip malls. Nobody was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, going to this like lovely it's inner city Victorian whatever is like that seems fine. But what if I had to sit in try this on? What if I were to sit in a metal box for like half an hour with other metal boxes honking around me to go park somewhere in a terribly unattractive long concrete thing, and then I'd go in, you know what I mean? Like nobody was like,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds great, but it happened. It's
No,
not,
no, no, no,
we
no.
don't actually
Yeah.
do the thing we want. Like and there's a particular pattern to this
Right, right.
where people are like, when they imagine the future, we
Mhm.
imagine the jetpacks and the hovercrafts or the, whatever it is. We imagine like, what do I as an individual yearn for? Wouldn't that be
Mhm.
cool? And then, some like millionaire makes one of those things as a PR project, like a hovercraft, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's doable," and then they don't sell you any of them. And what they
Mhm.
sell you is like something you didn't particularly want but can't avoid using because of the other constraints of the system.
I mean, no,
You know what I mean?
I'm not saying, okay, I think this is kind of going far afield. Like I have no idea whether people would end up, I can imagine that people might end up choosing to use AI to like hold some of these conversations and then tag you in when you need to or whatever else. Sure. I can
I
picture
guess
some
what I'm
people.
saying is it
I
also
can
won't
picture
feel
some
like
people
AI.
will that.
At that point, it won't feel like AI. Like when you drive a car, it doesn't feel like you're like, I am issuing orders to a terrible giant metal beast. When I drive a car, my experience is like, oh, I just went from place A to place B. And how did you go? Oh, well, there was I guess I shift, like maybe I had to shift out of park but I'm a car driver. I don't think about that. I just enter the car and then I'm at the new place and I'm having a conversation, scenery is passing. I think of it as me, right? I don't
No,
think of it as like,
no. Okay, that's again another aspect of it. I kind of want to put all that aside because, like, to go back to my original point, all I was trying to say is, sure, you can have a non-AI personal assistant. You could have 20 people doing that same job, right? So they take the
yeah,
AI out of the equation. I could
yeah,
have 20 people employed in like, watching everything I'm supposed to monitor on social media and then tagging me in to something to pay attention to. But whether it's 20 people or a machine system, there comes a point at which I am paying attention. And all I
yeah,
was saying is like that's
sure.
limited, right? Like that's
Yeah, I
that,
do think it's
yeah,
limited.
yeah,
Oh, I agree, it's
yeah.
limited. I'm just saying there's an enormous number of architectures that could use that attention in different ways, right? Like you know what I mean? Like I think it's,
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
no, I think it's a limited resource. Attention is a limited resource, but I think that we just haven't even scratched the surface of how we're going to end up using it. You know what I mean? Like I mean, maybe because probably none of this,
Yeah.
I mean, like arguably, on the other hand, also probably all of this is going away. Probably we will
Yeah,
save your manual typewriters, kids.
yeah.
Invest
Yeah.
in a manual typewriter now. That's actually like because we'll see if the
That's the thing.
world
Like
powered by
I
burning
think
dead dinosaurs
I think
sticks
to
around.
me it feels like the I don't know, like I find it hard to believe we're going to be like any more engaged on social media than we currently are, because the current level I think is already really difficult for a lot of people, right? Like so, like it's
Yes,
and
it
so
is. But
and so
I'm just
okay.
like very, I don't know. I think partly where we're going here is like what I'm pushing back against here is the notion that we get what we want. So in a way, it's like, it's hard. It's really hard on people living indoors. Living indoors sucks. There's a large number of like the amount of time we spend indoors. Just never mind screens. I'm not even talking about on screens. Just indoors in like boxy rectangular rooms is making all of us very sick. And like the whole sedentary, I don't know, like hunter gatherers would look at us and be like, "This is a horrible prison
Yeah,
you've
yeah. No,
constructed
no, no,
yourself
no,
for
no, no,
yourselves."
no, 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 no. I mean, yes, we may go into a
But like
dystopia
like
where we're
like there's
all
lots
like
of,
fractured attention all the time. Sure.
well, right,
Yes. Yeah,
like camping, which is a
yeah.
luxury good. That's like a luxury good that a privileged class of people get to engage in mostly.
Yeah.
Like that's just like how everybody used to. That's like ordinary life. There was a thing that was ordinary life, how everyone lived, and then we
Yeah.
got to a place where that ordinary life that's like natural and useful and like is good for you is like a super luxury good for the privileged, and that keeps happening.
Yeah, yeah, no,
I
I
mean,
don't,
I'm not
no,
saying
no,
it
no,
always
no,
happens.
I don't disagree. I don't know what's going to happen, in terms of like what corporate or other pressures will push us towards,
A lot of
sure,
the
all of these things could happen, but,
if you look at the whole kids on their phones thing, like kids are on their
yes.
phones, a lot of the times they don't want to be on their phones. Like they
Yeah.
would love to not be on their phones. A lot of what happens is it's like, I mean, the FOMO thing is huge, right? Where it's like, well, if you're not, I remember like I remember some kids that I've known who have been like in that, particularly in like the delicate phase of like 12, 13, 14, or whatever, where it's like, being on my phone sucks, but if I'm not monitoring what my friends are saying and what they're liking and liking the things that they're posting and whatever, I will lose massive social status. And do you know what I mean? It's like I'm in this rat race
Mm.
of like I put my phone down and I'm fucked. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
and which is sort of the same as like people who are like constantly have Teams activated because their bosses or coworkers on other time zones are pinging them. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's not. There's a lot of things we end up sliding into without having chosen them as the way we want to live.
I don't disagree. I don't think I was
Yeah.
saying that it couldn't go that way. I think I was more saying I kind of hope it doesn't, like,
No, I wish you
so yeah, that's all I was saying is like, I'm hoping that we have some cultural pushback and
yes,
create some new
yes.
norms where that's less.
I think it's this interesting problem. It's this very interesting problem of this era of technology where it's like, it is hard for us to even believe that we get to pick. That's why I'm amazed that we got to keep Wikipedia. I'm amazed that we managed to get our asses together to like be like, maybe this thing we'll just share with each other. Can we buy it? No, thank you. Like, I'm just amazed that happened even in one corner of the internet, because so much of it is like, we do the shiny thing that's easy and then it sucks and we can't get out. And like, we keep doing that. We keep not making the decision, just like me going to the automatic checkout thing. I now have decided not to have a relationship with the people who work in the Migros around the corner. Instead, I'm going to beat my thing in front of the laser. You know what I mean? It's just like the path of least resistance is so
Although,
attractive.
I mean, that said, that one's kind of funny, right? Because I know people currently who will continue to pick the self-checkout line or not pick the cashier line, right?
Sure.
Even, like they do prioritize the human interaction, even if the line is longer and they're going to take longer to get out of the store. They like it. They get enough value out of it to make it worthwhile. I think the insidious part is that if enough of us pick the self-checkout line,
then those people lose.
You're going to end up with only self-checkout lines, right? So
exactly. And those people lose. And also, like, is it for the corporation? Is it, advantageous to have, at what, it's not even at the point at which there's no demand for it anymore. It's the point at which it's more cost effective to get rid of those people and have robots.
And interestingly,
it's also,
there is a lot of not theft, like inadvertent theft with self-checkout lines. And so where people forget, like they put some, a thing of Cokes in the bottom of the cart or something like that. So now the corporations are a little bit like, oh my God, it's costing us money. Maybe we need to bring back cashiers.
That's funny.
So anyway,
the funny thing is I'm criticizing this corporation, but it's actually a co-op. Like both of the big supermarket chains are co-ops. Although as I understand, they're kind of corrupt co-ops. Anyway, Ella has a whole rant.
Okay. We're wrapping. We're
wrapping
because it's been 2 hours and this was not what we wanted to talk about at all, but it was a great discussion. So
it's a bonus episode we didn't mean to have.
That's right. So we hope you've enjoyed our thoughts on
not on the original topic.
Not on the original topic.
You've enjoyed our thoughts not on the topic we were going to talk about.
On social class and can we have a classless society? And I can't even remember everything we talked about, but Darius
Landlords.
It up. Landlords, yes.
Landlords, classless societies, utopian science fiction, social media.
Yeah, we kind of transitioned
retail robots.
Yeah. So this has been MRAH and Rosenbaum are humans for the moment.
Still humans.
I don't know, uploaded to the AI and
You are still listening to a podcast actually recorded by the real human Marianne and Ben, who had to speak each word in sequence. It was edited.
We didn't get to outsource it. It was edited by a human.
Yes. It was not edited by a human. It is not just a swarm of hive minds replicating what we would say. Yeah, those episodes
come back next year. I know. That's right. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.